Amen. I'm so encouraged every time that I hear that song. Brothers and sisters, I want to welcome you to another Table of Christ Health Sunday where no one here stands alone. We're just so glad that you decided to join us today, and we encourage you to share the link with someone, anyone that you care about, anyone that you know has been desiring country living. Please share the link near and far and wide. Let us have opening prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just invite your presence here, Lord. We invite your Holy Spirit to prick each and every heart that has not found country living yet. Father, we just ask that you encourage us, that you continue to lead the way and provide for us and open up doors that seem shut. Father, we know that you own every single thing, and there is nothing that happens here on this earth that goes that,
based on what is suffered. So we
that
have
happens
here three.
without your knowledge or your sight. Father, again, we ask for your presence. We ask that you keep up with the devices. We ask that you be with the presenter, Sister Karmen, Lord. Bless her, Lord. Speak through her and encourage us to be not just hearers, but doers of your word. In Jesus' name, amen. Dear brothers and sisters, I have chosen to share with you a scripture that is very familiar with all of us. It's Psalms chapter 23, but it's just one verse, verse 4. And it says, Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And you're probably wondering why, for a program on country living, would they choose such a verse? Well, country living is sometimes not very cherished by us all. It's a little scary, unfamiliar to some of us. And so we have to remember that God will always be, He's always faithful, and He will always be with us. And the part just reminding us that His rod and His staff lets us know that He will be our defense. So, brothers and sisters, I'm encouraging myself, I'm encouraging you to stay in the Word, to stay faithful, and let's be blessed by today's presentation. Sister Carmen, she is no stranger to us. She has been here several times. She has her own platform with her sisters, Exodus in the Journey. She is a faithful warrior, a faithful soldier on the battlefield for Christ. She is such a blessing. She has encouraged us year after year for a few years now to seek country living. And she not only encouraged us to seek it, but she has strategized ways that we can do this. So I just pray that you will be blessed. I know that you will be. And I will turn it over to Sister Carmen Keith. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
All right. Thank you so much, Sister Courtney and team, Sister Rhonda, for the invitation as well. And just going to ask us about our heads for a word of prayer. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Get a little excited. So I think you all know that about me by now. So definitely good to be back with my TOC family. And I see some familiar faces. So it's good to see you all here. So let's just bow our heads for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, again, we just want to say thank you, Lord, for waking us up this morning and for allowing us to enter into a new week. Lord, life is not always the way that we want it to go, and sometimes there are ups and downs and challenges, and we just can't see our way clear, Lord. But we're standing on your promises here today, Lord, that number one, that you will never leave us or forsake us, and also that if we seek you with all our hearts, we will find you. And Lord, I'm just asking for your guidance here, for the words that you would have me to share to your people. And may they be a source of encouragement and give us a reason to pause and to contemplate where we are in our journey, not just physically here on this earth towards country living, or maybe we're not there yet mentally, but also just on our journey towards heaven and understanding that country living is a key component to help prepare us and to fit us for heaven. I ask that you please be with the technology as well, and continue to be with each listener here and those that are seeking and desiring to follow your command to go to the country, Lord. It's always been your will for your people, and you placed Adam and Eve in the garden in the beginning. And it wasn't until Cain, and after he sinned and slew his brother, Once he was driven out of the garden along with his parents and so forth. Well, actually, his parents were driven out first, but he went and built the first city. So we know that that is not your design. And so we just pray, Lord, that you will help all of your children who it is their aim and their desire to get there. And even if they're not there yet mentally, and they're still contemplating and on the fence, Lord, please, we're just asking that you just open hearts and minds today. I do pray. And please be with the technology as well. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, gonna jump right in because y'all know me. I tend to talk. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. So some of this will be a little bit of familiar territory, and the Lord actually took the presentation a different direction today. I actually pretty much never do the same presentation twice, and I don't script what I'm going to say. I may have some notes and I may follow them and I may not, and or I may have no notes at all. But part of this will sound maybe a little bit familiar, at least elements of it. And for those that were on our Exodus and the Journey Zoom last night, I will share just 2 of the video clips from last night, but I have some more video clips that I did not share with totally different topics. But I've actually entitled this particular message, Country Living. What is it going to take? Country living. What is it going to take? You know, there's so much going on in the world around us. And, you know, many of us maybe find ourselves in a situation where we kind of consider ourselves to be kind of stuck, for lack of a better term, not sure which way the Lord would have us to go. We're not sure how to move forward. We're not sure, you know, is now the time for me to move to the country? All of these things and so many questions and so forth. So I'm hoping to broaden your mind today, and that the Holy Spirit will aid in that process. And I want to go ahead and share my screen because I'm going to be sharing video and so forth, but I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of items here. So I want to start out with some current events, okay? So this is not designed to scare anyone or anything, nothing like that, but just trying to help us to understand the days and times in which we're living and the things that we are up against. Now, I know that many of the TOC audience and family, and even Exodus and the Journey as well, we have people from multiple countries, okay? So sometimes you don't always know what's going on elsewhere or the gravity or the impact of those things. So some of these things may be new to some of you, but whether you live here in the United States or not, but I just want to make us aware of some things. And so we'll talk about that, and then we'll get underway with the rest of what we have for presentation. So I shared this last night on our Exodus and the Journey platform. And there's something very, very significant that actually took place here just this past week with our president, Donald Trump. And actually, he has threatened and actually began moving towards taking over the District of Columbia, so where the White House is and so forth, but the nation's capital, and doing this by force, by putting National Guards on the street and actually militarizing or federalizing actually the police department there for DC. And just to give you a little backdrop, and as a matter of fact, this video will give a little bit about it too, but apparently there was a crime that was committed reportedly, and somebody was beaten very, very badly. And part of the information is that there's something called the Doge team. So I don't know how many are familiar with that, but those who had been following Elon Musk and his role in the White House initially, his tenure for that officially has ended, but they said he would be back from time to time. But trust me, there's probably still some consulting and all of that going on. But basically, Elon Musk was in there to do a couple of things. Number one, he was being investigated. Several of his businesses were being investigated. So one of the things was to destroy evidence, okay, leading to his prosecution, potential prosecution, or at least whatever the outcome of the investigation would be. Let me put it that way. So because this investigation was opened up under the previous administration under President Joe Biden, okay, so he was there to destroy evidence that would be implicating him and his businesses and anything, and also to use his software and his AI technology to be able to gather people's personal information. Okay, so this is why you maybe heard some things in the news about him actually tapping into Social Security records. And basically, that is basically the one area that they say is probably the most clean and most accurate and so forth. But basically, they extrapolated people's information, their personal information, including bank accounts, you know, addresses, phone numbers, everything that would be on file for the department and so forth. And all of this was done without permission, and it was actually unconstitutional. And so basically, by the time a court ruled on it, they told him that he needed to destroy the evidence. Well, the damage was already done, and trust me, I'm sure they've already done the data dump. But his goal was to actually procure information so that actually all this could be fed into AI, which they tell you is artificial intelligence. And we're actually in the middle of a series. We did part 1 last night of 2, because we'll be doing it this Saturday night again, different aspects of it. But I'm saying all that to say that things are happening very quickly. And so one of the people who actually worked for DOGE, because the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, that's what it is. That's the acronym that DOGE stands for. And so actually, even though Elon Musk officially is no longer in that capacity leading that charge, supposedly, one of the employees from DOGE actually ended up getting, beaten trying to rescue somebody else, a lady that was being attacked with crime. So please bear with me 1 second. Okay, we just had a power outage here. A few thunderstorms here in the area, but I have it hooked into my solar system. My printer is noisy, starting back up. But anyhow, so this is the backdrop for this. And so Trump basically came out and issued a statement, and he's saying, we're taking our cities back, we're taking DC back, and this is not going to be tolerated and so forth. So he actually literally took over and basically, you might as well say, imposed a miniature martial law, okay? But basically took over and federalized the police department there in DC. But I'm gonna go ahead and let the video speak for itself, just so that you can hear actually what all was going on and hear the statements from President Trump himself.
In an extraordinary move, President Trump has ordered a federal takeover of the D.C. Police Department and the deployment of 800 National Guard troops to the nation's capital. Trump declared a crime emergency in D.C., even though violent crime there is at a 30-year low. Unlike other cities, Washington, D.C. is not part of any state. Under the Home Rule Act, the president has the authority to federalize the Metropolitan Police Department for 30 days. Trump also authorized Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to work with state governors around the country to utilize additional National Guard units if necessary. Trump threatened to take action in other cities.
This issue directly impacts the functioning of the federal government and is a threat to America, really. It's a threat to our country. We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say.
Trump's move came days after a former DOGE staffer, known as Big Balls, was assaulted during an attempted carjacking. On Monday, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser denounced Trump's order to take over the D.C. police.
And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship.
Protesters gathered Monday near the White House to condemn Trump's move. This is Kaya Chatterjee, Executive Director of Free DC.
Nothing Trump is doing right now is about our safety. That's right. If Trump cared about our safety, he would stop mass firings of federal workers. Taking away our jobs, our families' jobs, that isn't safety. If Trump cared about safety, he would stop kidnapping immigrant neighbors. Because terrorizing people, terrorizing families is not safety. If Trump cared about our safety, he would fund Medicaid. He would fund schools. He would fund SNAP. Because people being sick sick, out of school, and hungry is not safety. If Trump cared about DC's safety, he would make DC's prosecutor accountable to the people of DC so that they were listening to local leaders. These are the leaders, our local leaders, our communities are the ones who have reduced crime to a 30-year low.
Advocates for unhoused people in Washington, D.C. have also expressed alarm over Trump's threats. On Sunday, Trump wrote, quote, "The homeless have to move out immediately," unquote. This is 56-year-old Flaggett Rippey, who became homeless in Washington, D.C. after the house she lived in caught fire in March.
Give us a home. How about that? How about just giving people that need a home inside? Then we'd be inside. You just want to just throw us to the rats.
We begin today's show with two guests, Khalil Gibran Muhammad.
Okay, so I just wanted you to be able to see the background on that, to see what was actually happening. So basically, we dodged a bullet here, if you will, but as it's been stated by another person who's been a guest on our platform as well, and he addressed this very much so. But I want to share a little bit more context because it's a different audience here. But basically, what we saw was a trial run. Okay, this happened in LA, Los Angeles, California, just probably about a month and a half or two ago, where basically protests erupted. Supposedly, they were very well organized, and I don't think that they were from grassroots people. Okay, we'll just put it that way. But basically, these riots actually and protests actually, that's probably the better word for it, because they were largely peaceful until people started getting attacked for the most part. But they actually were organized throughout all the states across the country. And so the National Guard and so forth was moved in. Even then, that was a test. So this time he went a little bit further, and they put National Guardsmen on the streets there, deployed them in other places as well, anticipating violence and so forth with the protests. So now he went a little bit further. Now he actually was taking over the police department, but I believe he might have done the same thing in LA as well. But if not, this would be, him doing even more so here in the District of Columbia. Now, as the thing said, actually, the video said that he actually had the power to do this as president, and do this for like at least 30 days. Well, that got mysteriously lifted because it was basically determined to be unconstitutional, which they knew going in, I'm sure. But anyhow, they're testing us, okay, and trying to see what they can also get away with. But on top of that, and doing these things, now basically it's showing you how quickly things can happen, and that basically orders can just be pronounced. And he actually threatened to roll this out to other states and other cities, okay? So Baltimore, okay, that's in Maryland. Then you've got also, you also had LA, California. He also mentioned Chicago, that's in Illinois, and other places that he was saying that the crime in Oakland, California. So he was actually threatening to do the same thing, saying that Pete Hegseth, who's actually over the Defense Department, why is military personnel then trying to coordinate with local police and so forth to try to handle things, okay? And it's unconstitutional to use military, U.S. military, against its own people in its own streets. Now, National Guard is typically not deployed historically for combative types of things and that type of thing. It's more so to bring aid after, say, a storm or a disaster or something like that. And usually, my understanding is they're largely unarmed and so forth. So this is actually something that was just unconstitutional, but it was a trial run. And it reminded me of the siege of Jerusalem. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in chapter 1 of Great Controversy. Hopefully you've been reading that book. Hopefully you've read it already, but go back and read chapter 1 again. And it talks about the destruction of Jerusalem that occurred, and that was prophesied to occur, that happened in AD 70, after Christ had already ascended to heaven. And so the thing is that it reminded me of Cestius surrounding Jerusalem. And Sister White says that when it seemed just at the point that he would attack with the Roman armies, back in AD 66, actually, the Roman armies mysteriously withdrew. Just when it seemed like they were just poised to attack at any moment, they mysteriously withdrew. But guess what? She says that the people of God, the Christians, they actually recognized that as a sign to flee the cities and to get to the country, to go to the mountains, to go and get outside of Jerusalem, okay? And so they recognized that as a sign. And so roughly about 3.5 years later, Roman armies came back again, and this time it was under the leadership of Titus. And if you know your history and you've read Great Controversy, you know that Jerusalem was utterly destroyed in the year AD 70. So could this have been God's warning shot, if you will, all over again? telling us, guys, I don't understand why you're not getting it. It's time to get out of these cities, before I pour out my judgments. And again, we'll come to that a little bit later. So I just wanted to show you that that's one possible way that something could actually happen overnight. And don't think that it can't happen in another country. Because people could say, oh, you guys just have a tyrannical or rogue president or whatever. Trust me, this could happen anywhere. Okay. And we just don't know what mankind is capable of. And as Genesis chapter 6 reminds us, man's thoughts here in the last days were evil. In the days of Noah, they were evil continually. And Jesus himself said that as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man cometh. And we'll deal with the story of Lot in a little bit as well. So I just wanted to bring that out, because have you considered that perhaps maybe martial law or some type of civil unrest leading to you not being able to get out of the cities? I want you to keep that in mind. That's just one possibility. Now, this, and I'm just going to give this as hypothetical, but honestly, I tend to lean towards believing this. If this is true, I think at worst, it's hypothetical, or at best it's hypothetical, but at worst, they're telling you what's coming if it hasn't already happened in the country of China. Okay. All right. So there were leaked documents according to this video, and it's hard to collaborate things sometimes coming out of China because of the way that they actually have clamped down on information getting out and so forth. But I want you to hear what is being said that actually has been happening here. And so it says leaked documents or leaked docs reveal plan to replace all cash by 2026. No opt-out allowed. That's the point that you need to really, really pay attention to. This is not voluntary, it's compulsory. Okay, you would not be able to opt out of the system. Now, we know, according to Bible prophecy in Revelation 13, that a time of no buy, no sell is coming. Well, you have to get rid of cash. You have to get rid of gold. You have to get rid of silver and anything of monetary value that you cannot control. And trust me, Rome is far-reaching in her plans. And she has foreseen this and planned for this very day and time, because it is setting the stage for some of the last acts in the drama between Christ and Satan. Well, Satan will eventually end up personating the second coming of Christ himself. Okay, not impersonating. To impersonate means that you are doing it for entertainment purposes only, and everyone knows that you're not that person that you're imitating, okay, or impersonating. But when you look up the definition for personate, it's done with the intent to deceive, to claim that you are that person. Very, very different. So that's why Sister White uses the word that he will personate, not impersonate. Satan himself will personate the second coming of Christ. And there's a lot in between that is actually being put in place with AI and all of these things to bring this all together. So what you're hearing and seeing in a lot of countries and a lot of talk around the globe is the resetting of global economies, going to a digital currency and no longer a physical currency, okay? And then also each country being able to do this, because when people actually have the ability to purchase things in cash or some other means, like I said, even gold and silver, we'll talk about that a little bit later, then basically that is not controllable. Okay, because people can go withdraw that and then you have no record of who did what. Yes, a person might get issued a receipt or something, but with a central bank digital currency, everything is digital and it is logged on a ledger that can be viewed and that basically would be accessible by others, and everybody could see actually transactions. I'd actually seen something completely different, and it was saying that your information won't just be available necessarily to governments, but if it's done, if it's on a private ledger or something like that, or I should say if the digital currency is issued privately, let me put it that way, then basically that ledger would be viewable and people could go in there and see whatever people have purchased or whatever transaction that they have done. So I guess we'll hear more about that, but that's what I have been hearing. And I'm like, ooh, that's different than what is being touted. And I mean, it's more than just what the government potentially of any country at any given time would have access to, depending on how it's issued. So I want you to hear what actually has happened supposedly over in China. I cannot verify this, but like I said, I just want you to think about the implications. I want you thinking today, okay? Because what would you do if and when it happens in your country, if it hasn't already, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and play part of this clip.
Leaked government documents reveal China's plan to replace all physical cash by 2026.
And I'm sorry, I do need to give one other caveat. Now, they mention a couple things in here about the documents saying that this will be happening in 500 days, okay? Now, I don't know when the documents were supposedly leaked, if this is true, okay? But they're actually talking about replacing the cash by 2026. So just keep that in mind. You'll hear reference to 500 days, and obviously we're way less than 500 days. We're like 3.5 months away from January 1st of 2026. So clearly it's not that. And they clearly say that it's actually by January 1st later in the video. So we're not even talking the end of next year. Okay. So we're talking cashless by January 1st of 2026 in China.
Leaked government documents reveal China's plan to replace all physical cash by 2026. And here's the part sparking panic. There's no opt-out. Every single transaction from buying a coffee to closing a billion-dollar deal will pass through one central, government-controlled system. And in just 500 days, the money you're holding right now could be illegal to use. So, what's really inside these leaked files, and why did the government want them buried? What do these newly surfaced documents reveal about the most aggressive financial control plan in history? Why is China eliminating cash entirely and forcing every citizen to comply without exception? And could this model spread far beyond China's borders, changing how the entire world uses money? It all starts with a document the Chinese government never meant for you to see. The leak surfaces. It happens in the dead of night. An encrypted file is sent from an unknown source to a small circle of international journalists. The sender doesn't give a name, just a single line, "The public must know before it's too late." Within minutes, the file starts moving through secure channels, hopping between continents from London to Singapore to New York. The documents inside are in Mandarin, stamped with red seals and marked in bold black ink. Top confidential. These are not rumors or speculation. They are internal orders straight from China's Ministry of Finance and the People's Bank of China. And what they contain could change the way 1.4 billion people handle money forever. Journalists pore over the pages, and one thing becomes clear. This is a coordinated plan, not a draft or a discussion. Every sentence is written like a final decree. The language is absolute, leaving no room for debate, no margin for delay. The orders detail a sweeping change to the nation's financial system, one that will remove every single yuan note and coin from circulation. By January 1st, 2026, the document states all physical cash will be gone. In its place will be a single government-issued central bank digital currency, or CBDC, and in a sentence that chills every reporter reading it, the order declares, no citizen or business may refuse the CBDC under any circumstance. To understand the gravity of this, you have to look at where China is right now. This isn't a country that's unfamiliar with digital payments. Over the past decade, services like WeChat Pay and Alipay have replaced wallets for millions of people. Street vendors, taxi drivers, even buskers on the sidewalk, they all flash QR codes for instant payment. In major cities like Shanghai or Beijing, you can go days without seeing a single banknote change hands. But here's the difference. Those payments are still voluntary. Cash still exists in the background, ready for anyone who needs it at least, for now. This leak changes that. It's not about nudging people toward digital. It's about eliminating every alternative. It's about replacing centuries of currency use with something the government can see, control, and shut off instantly. And the journalists know if these documents are genuine. The countdown has already started. They sent encrypted copies to financial analysts, economists, and cybersecurity experts for verification. The verdict comes back unanimous. The seals, the codes, the formatting, all authentic. What the journalists are holding isn't just news. It's a roadmap for the end of cash in the world's most populous nation. But the leak didn't just reveal the plan, it revealed the timeline, and that's where the panic began. The 500-day countdown. The leaked documents leave no ambiguity. China has just 500 days before the last banknote disappears. It's not a distant abstract reform. It's a clock already ticking down, second by second, toward a hard deadline, January 1st, 2026. The pages outline a precise three-phase operation to make it happen. Every step is dated, every instruction numbered, every outcome predicted. The plan isn't presented as a proposal. It reads like an execution order, and the precision is what makes it terrifying. Phase 1 begins almost immediately, rural outreach. Government officials will move into villages, towns, and farming communities with what they call education campaigns. They'll teach people how to use the digital UN app, distribute state-approved smartphones where necessary, and begin encouraging early adoption. But in the same paragraph, the document hints at pressure tactics, cash withdrawal limits, service restrictions, and mandatory digital salary payments for state workers in those areas. Phase 1 isn't about giving rural citizens a choice. It's about getting them hooked on the new system before they can organize any resistance. And once the countryside is on board, Phase 2 kicks in. Phase 2 is called forced conversion, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Banks will begin automatically transferring the balances of personal and business accounts from cash-based holdings into the digital yuan. Citizens will be told to deposit any physical notes they have, as those notes will soon lose their status as legal tender. There's no mention of compensation for collectors, savers, or those holding cash for privacy reasons. Instead, the language is called clinical. Conversion will proceed without delay. Imagine walking into your bank, trying to withdraw your own money, only to be told it now exists only inside a government app you can't delete. That's not a hypothetical. That's what this phase guarantees. The final step, Phase 3, is called total deactivation. On the morning of January the 1st, 2026, every UN note and coin will officially be void. Shops will be forbidden from accepting them, banks will refuse to exchange them, and any attempt to trade in cash will be considered illegal. By this point, every citizen will have been issued a digital UN wallet, and here's the kicker. Each wallet will be permanently linked to their national ID. That means every purchase, every sale, every transfer will be traceable to a single individual in real time. And unlike cash, there's no way to spend anonymously, no way to hide a transaction from the state. It's the end of financial privacy for over 1 billion people. For the average citizen, the shift will be brutal in its simplicity. One day, you've got 1,400 yen in your pocket. The next, you wake up and it's just numbers in an app you can't uninstall. You can't take it out. You can't put it under your mattress. You can't hand it to your neighbor without the government knowing. In a country where many still remember the chaos of past currency reforms, the psychological shock of this move is impossible to overstate. And this shock is exactly what fuels the next, more explosive revelation. But the most controversial part wasn't the deadline. It was the fact that there would be no way to opt out. The no opt-out clause. Buried deep in the leaked documents is the single sentence that freezes every journalist in the room. It reads, "Refusal to accept or transact in CBDC will be considered economic sabotage." Those 4 words, economic sabotage, carry the weight of a criminal charge. In legal terms, it puts rejecting the digital yuan in the same category as deliberately damaging the nation's economy. And in China, charges like that don't end with a fine, they end with prison. This isn't a suggestion. It's a declaration that the new system isn't optional. The implications are immediate and devastating. Street vendors, many of whom operate with nothing more than a cart, a cash box, and a handwritten menu, will be forced into the system. Rural elders, some of whom have never used a smartphone in their lives, will suddenly have no legal way to buy or sell without it. Cash-only service workers, like the seamstress who repairs clothes in a back alley, or the noodle shop owner who keeps his earnings in a tin can, will see their entire way of life outlawed overnight. The informal economy, everything from neighborhood babysitters to small-time fruit sellers, will have to register with the state or vanish completely. For millions, the change isn't just inconvenient, it's existential. The penalties spelled out in the documents leave no room for mercy. A citizen caught refusing the digital yuan could face fines as high as 500,000 yuan. That's over 68,000 US dollars. And for repeat offenders, the punishment escalates to potential jail time, with terms extending up to 7 years. Authorities won't need to catch someone in the act. Every transaction, or lack of one, will be tracked in real time by the centralized system. That means a vendor declining a customer's QR code payment could be flagged instantly. And once flagged, the system can automatically freeze their account, leaving them without access to any funds until an investigation is resolved. In this system, non-compliance isn't just punished, it's impossible to hide. One farmer in Henan province, interviewed anonymously for fear of retaliation, put it simply, "I've never used a smartphone to get paid. Now they're telling me I have no choice." For him, the change isn't about politics or technology, it's about survival. He sells vegetables at a local market, and his customers often pay with small bills and coins. If those vanish, he's forced to depend on a device he doesn't own, connected to a network he doesn't trust, controlled by a government he fears. And if he refuses, he risks losing not just his livelihood, but his freedom. Stories like his aren't rare, they're the majority in rural China, and every single one of them will be swept into the same digital net. And as this reality sank in, people started moving fast before the government could act. The people react. The moment the leaked documents hit the public, fear turns into action. Bank branches across China see sudden, unannounced crowds forming before sunrise. From Beijing to small county towns, citizens rush to withdraw as much cash as they can, stuffing envelopes, boxes, and even plastic shopping bags without yuan notes. For many, it's their life savings, money they've kept in the bank for decades, now yanked out in panic. Some hide it under floorboards, others bury it in the backyard, and some even stash it in freezers, believing the cold will preserve the paper. The ripple effect is instant. Gold and silver prices spike in a single trading day, shattering previous highs. Pawn shops and jewelry stores become choke points for anxious buyers, desperate to turn cash into something the government can't just delete. A jewelry store in Guangzhou reports selling its entire stock of gold in just 3 hours, a record they'd never imagined possible. Silver coins vanish from shelves, bought in bulk by customers who, until that morning, had never considered precious metals an investment. Even secondhand gold chains, dented and worn, are suddenly worth far more than their weight. People aren't buying jewelry, they're buying escape hatches. Cryptocurrency markets also surge, despite Beijing's long-standing crackdown. Peer-to-peer trading apps light up with activity as citizens look for any way to move their wealth outside the government's reach.
Okay, so you get the idea in the sense here. Now, a couple things that she said here that are very, very alarming because, again, there's that no opt-out clause, okay? And again, if this is true, you can just see how this is coming. I don't think we're going to have the option to opt out because the Bible says clearly in Revelation 13 that the time is coming when no man will be able to buy or sell, save he that hath the mark of the beast, okay? Now, the mark of the beast crisis is not yet here. We know that that actually comes when the Sunday law is passed and then there is forced worship by law on Sunday. But we know that they're going to have the system in place so that you can't buy or sell by the time that that law is acted. So actually before it's enacted, that will be here, okay? And so one of the things that was mentioned here is not only will they be able to track every transaction here, but they will actually be able to track your transactions, all of them, and also your lack of transactions. So even if you just say, well, I'm not going to use that, or I'm going to minimize how often or what I do or whatever, remember, this is programmable currency, okay? And it's all digital. So guess what? You cannot make a run on the bank. You cannot go and request a withdrawal of your money. So you have to spend it or lose it, okay? Now, since it's programmable, they can put dates on it. They can put a mile radius on it where you can't use it beyond a 15-minute city, for example. Are you thinking now? Okay, you maybe cannot make a purchase outside a certain radius, et cetera, but they can literally turn you on or off. Okay, that's the whole point. So, and part of this will be regulated by a social credit score. So if you have not been the quote unquote good citizen, according to whatever parameters and rules and laws and so forth that they have put in place. And so if you have to put something over your mouth and your face again, okay, or if you have to get something, some juice in your arm or whatever the next thing may be, okay, if they deem and see that you've not been compliant, because AI will be surveilling all, okay, so cameras will be everywhere, et cetera, and if you have not done what they suggested, and they could probably even look back and see, well, did you buy this? Did you go to an office that administers this? And if you haven't, then they already know that you haven't complied with whatever they may have mandated or recommended or told people that they had to have in order to continue to be able to participate in the system. Do you see where this is headed? Okay. Now, the other thing is that if you refuse to participate, you actually can be fined up to the equivalent of over 68,000 US dollars. Okay. Over 500,000 yuan. Okay. Now, they make it so that it is actually considered economic sabotage, which then would be a criminal act. Because according to this, it's saying that you would be then guilty of deliberately damaging the economy of your country. Okay, now this again, I don't know if this is hypothetical or real, but at best, I think it tells us of what to expect in the near future, coming to a country, city, state, etc., town near you. Okay, so basically being brought right to your door. Now, and then also, they can also put you in jail for up to 7 years. Okay. Again, this is not a good situation. So if your money, when your money becomes programmable, you can't withdraw it, you can't make a run on the bank. There's nothing you can do in it except for spend it. But if they actually turn your access off, okay, because you've not been compliant or for whatever reason, then, and we're going to look at some other reasons that this could potentially happen as well. Then what? You don't have access. You can't go buy your groceries. You can't buy your medicine. You can't get your insulin or an antibiotic, or pain medication, or you have services at a doctor's office or the emergency room. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do anything. As a matter of fact, other videos on this channel have actually been saying that this has been happening in certain regions across China. All right. And they're saying that people, actually, their whole credit card system crashed. And that actually, one of my friends was able to collaborate for me because he was just walking back into the room with his television on. And he just heard Fox News actually report that their whole credit card system had crashed in China. And I don't know if it was just in one particular province or area, or if it was the whole countrywide, because that's a huge country. Okay. But everything came to a grinding halt. Imagine if you were debating and, still thinking or contemplating about getting out of the country, but now you're stuck. You don't know if the system's coming back up or not. The people were not told anything with reports that were actually surfacing, saying that, the people were not being informed as to whether or not, what was going on and whether or not it was a cyber attack or was this just a glitch in the system. They weren't told anything. Okay. And they all of a sudden, nobody had access to pay groceries or anything. There was one man actually that it was reported that he was hosting the wedding for one of his children. And he went to go pay. They had already done the ceremony and he went to go pay the people that were preparing the food. And I guess it's customary some places. I thought you had to prepay all of that in advance. But yeah, but anyhow, he went to go pay the person so that they could actually go ahead and serve the food for the reception because it was already prepared, and his card would not work. And so he's got all these guests there and his card will not work. And so he just kind of laughs at first, just thinking, oh, okay, let me try another card. That wasn't the problem. The whole system was down, but he didn't know that. And so he ended up, after not being able to pay and not serve his guests, he actually ended up reportedly actually offering his car. If anybody had 30,000 yuan to pay for the reception, he would give them his car. Okay. So people start doing things and getting desperate and so forth. I don't know if he had any takers or not, but I'm just saying when you have everybody in the same situation, or you can't even buy gas because, you can't use your card at the pump. Okay. And if cash is no longer accepted, everything came to a grinding halt. What do you do? Okay. So again, I hope you're thinking in terms of country living or how you would actually just survive if you found yourself stuck in the city and all of a sudden you can't transact business. All right, which takes me to the next report. Now, these are videos I did not share last night, but some of you maybe have heard about this. Please don't go by the title of this video that's there, because this is actually giving numerous different reports all in one video. But I'm just going to play a section of it. I've heard conflicting reports as far as whether or not what we're going to be talking about here with the chikungunya virus, whether or not it is fatal or not. Okay. There are some cases they say that fatalities are rare, but then some other reports that we had heard is that there have been some fatalities. But actually earlier in this video, they were talking about something that was in some of the water that the children were swimming in, and it was causing, I forget what they called it, but it was causing basically an infection in the brain and so forth. And that's what the new deadly outbreak in China, that's what that is in reference to. So not what we're about to talk about with the chikungunya. Okay. But I just want to play this short clip about this.
Chikungunya hits Beijing, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, 6 Chinese provinces on maximum alert. A silent outbreak is sweeping through China, and it's moving faster than the public is being told. In Guangdong province, a wave of chikungunya fever, known locally as Kugong disease, erupted in early June. Spread by Aedes mosquitoes, this illness brings fever, joint pain, and rashes. But while most cases are mild, the lack of a cure or vaccine makes prevention critical. Authorities waited more than a month before revealing the outbreak on July 15th. By August 12th, Beijing's National Disease Control Bureau admitted that 6 provinces, Guangdong, Zhejiang, Fujian, Hainan, Yunnan, and Guangxi, were now Category 1 high-risk zones, the top-tier classification for epidemic control. Officially, there are 7,016 confirmed cases. Unofficially, many believe the real number is far higher. The virus has already crossed borders, turning up in Beijing, Hubei, Hunan, Macau, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. On the ground in Foshan, residents report a jarring contradiction. Officials claim infection rates are falling, yet campaign-style crackdowns intensify. Streets are blanketed in clouds of white insecticide. Nucleic acid testing lines stretch long, and in one shocking incident, workers allegedly entered a home while parents were away and drew blood from 2 children, without consent. This is a gross violation of medical ethics, says former U.S. Army virologist Dr. Lin Xiaoxu. For chikungunya, serum testing has little treatment value. Why the heavy-handed tactics? Some fear the truth is darker. Is the CCP concealing another pathogen? With no full public report, suspicions grow. This comes as COVID-19 quietly surges again across China. Pediatric ER doctors are reporting more child cases, and new CDC data shows the novel coronavirus topping positive rates in flu-like samples from hospitals. 5 years after Wuhan, the cycle of outbreak, cover-up, and public distrust appears far from over.
Okay, I'm gonna play another video regarding this, but again, from a different channel, the same one in the previous video. They were reporting that they didn't know what was going on or if there was some other thing, but people were actually supposedly being hauled off. I don't know if it's supposedly related to this or not. Again, it could be hypothetical. You don't know sometimes how much stuff is AI or this, that, or the other, but I'm just showing you, but this actually is real. The chikungunya, as a matter of fact, the CDC has actually it said that they've issued a level 2 advisory, okay, for travel to and from China. Okay, so you can actually go check that out. But so the virus is actually real, and the next one will explain more about it, how it's purportedly spread, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we were hearing some things. I was hearing some things initially, and again, I cannot confirm them, but I was hearing some things initially, and the next video will share a little bit more about that. And some of you may have seen this, those of you who were in the Caribbean, but basically, yes, they're claiming that it is a global threat. So here we go again. Now, you just heard that they waited for more than 1 month to actually report the virus. Doesn't that sound familiar with something that we all just went through that affected and impacted the whole world? Hopefully, we're not looking at anything on that scale again, but again, I want you thinking, okay? So you're going to hear about this and how it's actually spread. And so this video is from St. Vincent Times, and it's suggesting that lockdowns are coming as cases spread worldwide. Don't know. Time will tell whether or not this will happen or not, but you need to be aware of these things, but you need to be thinking because, again, we're talking about country living. We're talking about doing what God has commanded us to do. Why are we waiting? Okay? So if you're not moving in that direction or you're stuck or something, we can talk about that. But, but the whole thing is that we have become complacent. We have gotten comfortable again. We've gotten our lives back on track, and we think that everything has gone back to normal, but it's far from normal. We're living in a bubble if we think that it's gone back to normal, and we're living in fantasy land if we think that it's gone back to normal, because now AI is taking jobs. The economy here in the U.S. is just it's plummeting and fast, and we'll talk about that in a bit too. But just saying that these things you need to be thinking about, because we could be very close to yet another lockdown. What would that do for you with your plans to get out, especially if you haven't even started looking? You haven't done anything, okay? Or if you have been doing something or whatever, we really need to take this seriously, and we need to move quickly but wisely, okay? So I'm going to play this video here.
I keep telling you about this lockdown that is coming. We've talked about it in various videos. A lot of things have been thrown about as to how they can get a lockdown. What we see coming out of China again now is the chikungunya. I think you remember a long time ago in the Caribbean, we had some serious cases. And now there are about 8,000 cases in China. They labeled it an outbreak towards already. And there's some travel advice being going around as well. But take a look at this video, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
The videos coming out of China and spreading across social media are eerily familiar, reminiscent from the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. So what is happening? And do you need to worry? China is experiencing an outbreak of chikungunya, a painful mosquito-borne virus. It has rapidly spread to about 8,000 patients in just 4 weeks, mainly across China's Guangdong province to the south, with the city of Foshan hit the hardest, according to the New York Times. On Monday, Hong Kong reported its first case. infected residents are being sent to quarantine wards in hospitals, where they're placed in beds covered by mosquito nets, where they have to remain for a week or until they test negative. In a massive effort to curb its further spread, masked Chinese soldiers have been dousing public spaces with insecticide. Authorities have begun releasing elephant mosquitoes, whose larvae devour the smaller virus-carrying mosquitoes, and releasing mosquito-eating fish into Foshan's public ponds.
Right. But what is very interesting is that there's already a vaccine, chikungunya. And everything is just a vaccine, really. But I'm just, warning you about that. The issue here is that the health authorities are warning travelers of a mosquito-borne virus that can cause deadly joint pain. After thousands of cases have been reported in a few weeks in China, always China, almost 8,000 instances of the chikungunya virus have been diagnosed in the country, mostly in the Foshan city in Guangdong province. And of course, they have prompted authorities to impose forceful measures, including mass quarantines, although the virus is not spread by person to person. Last week I got an email saying that look out for a lockdown in all of the countries very soon, and it would happen on a weekend basically, and it was coming from a very credible source out of New York. This chikungunya, like I said, it's not anything that spread from person to person, it's actually mosquitoes. But you see what happened in China, they included mass quarantine. This has become a really front runner. The World Health Organization has now raised its concern about the virus. So the WHO is getting in play now, giving new guidelines to healthcare providers on how to help those who have contracted the chikungunya. And a medical officer at WHO told reporters that an estimated 5.6 billion people across 119 countries are at risk from the virus. You see how the story is building? This year so far, France has reported 49 cases on the mainland and in Corsica. Italy has reported 2. Europe is not currently experiencing severe outbreak. Health officials in the continent are making travelers aware of the virus, as well as the rollout of a new vaccine. It's just a vaccine after vaccine. Here's what travelers need to know about the virus, plus advice from a specialist travel doctor on how to best prepare for traveling overseas. And what we're hearing is that chikungunya virus spreads in a mosquito-borne disease, and we know that, of course. Spread to humans by bite from an infected mosquito. It cannot be passed from human to human. And most cases have been found in where? In the Americas, Africa, Asia, Brazil has had most cases in 2025. Listen, I'm hearing that in several Caribbean islands that persons have been reporting this sickness, where they've been getting joint pain. It's symptom of chikungunya, but doctors are not telling them it's chikungunya. And they've been getting fever and they've been feeling sick for a couple of days. And, they take some oregano oil, they drink some bitter bush, and that seems to have cleared it up. Whatever it is, our authorities are not telling us. Anyway, in total, there have been approximately 240,000 chikungunya cases and 90 related deaths across 16 countries since the year started. So you see it's mounting, and they're looking at that and wish to let us know that this may become a public health issue very soon. Listen, remember, the document has already been signed. And when anything happens now, remember, countries don't have the authority. WHO can say lockdown and you have to lock down. So just be mindful of that. A reunion, of course, and also 2 French islands off the coast of Africa have ongoing outbreaks of chikungunya, with the former recording 54,000 cases as of July 2025. You remember the one time that sent out some mosquitoes saying that these mosquitoes would basically deal with the Aedes aegypti type mosquitoes? Well, it's just not working out. And then the other day I showed you a video where China was making some very small drones. They look like mosquitoes, right? People said I was talking foolishness. Well, a lot of them have been spotted in areas in China where they're saying that chikungunya is spreading. So what's happening? What's really going on? Okay, well, I talk foolishness, so I guess that's what it is. So basically, they're saying that chikungunya originated in Tanzania, I said Africa, where the disease was first discovered in the 1915s. It means that which bends up, describing contorted posture of infected people experience severe joint pain. Listen, guys, just be on the lookout. Our people not telling us anything. Take the information that I gave to you, spread it to your friends, and let them know and prepare yourself. There's always remedies for these things. Some bitter bush, some popper leaf, boil and drink, and some oregano oil will do just fine for these things. So take it easy, guys, and help spread the video.
Okay, so you've heard yet another report talking about the same thing. So again, now I want you to think about something. We are actually in hurricane season. Those that are in Caribbean, I saw that hurricane, what is it, Aaron, I think it is actually coming through part of the Caribbean right now. I don't know the whole trajectory. I haven't even had a chance to look at that. But whenever you have large rainfalls and so forth, that is actually the perfect setup for the breeding of more mosquitoes. Okay. Now we know that Billy G, if you read between the lines, he had released millions of mosquitoes to try to combat this, that, or the other. Now, who knows what else might have been done? Maybe, maybe not. I'm being careful here. Okay. But just saying that, who knows what was really what those things were really carrying. And supposedly it was the male that would actually then breed with the female to try to kill off the carriers of certain illnesses and diseases. We don't know what we're looking at, but all I know is when you have excess water and it's standing from a lot of raining, a lot of flooding. We just had flooding here in Tennessee, down in Chattanooga, and part of the interstate was underwater and so forth. People lost lives. We had Hurricane Helene last year as well. And that water and that storm just came inland and way up into the mountains of the Carolinas and so forth and hit multiple states, but several thousands of people lost their lives. We will never know how many people exactly because they don't report the numbers of deaths. They only report on basically the bodies that they have recovered, number one, that not just recovered, but also positively identified. So if you have a body that is not identified, it is not counted. It is not counted towards the official count. And if you have bodies that you never found, of course, that's not counted towards the initial count or the official death toll either. So you're going to hear very, very low numbers for some of these incidences where bodies are just never recovered, sort of like Hurricane Katrina. And they think that over 3,000 people lost their lives. That's like the official number, but that's just the bodies and remains that they actually recovered just a portion of that they were able to identify. But trust me, there were probably several thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, if not more, that actually lost their lives, that they never found them, okay? Or they were drug out to sea, or sharks got them or whatever, okay? So just saying that, remember what he said in this. The World Health Organization, Tedros, last year, he was so disappointed when nations did not come together to sign this treaty to tell people that, with nations, we have to handle the next pandemic we have to handle differently, where then the World Health Organization would be the ones telling countries that they have to lock down rather than waiting for the individual countries to make that decision. Okay. So, and then he came back a few days later and said, oh, I am so happy. We've reached an agreement that we have signed to with negotiations behind the scenes. And so we'll be implementing it over the course of the next year. Well, we're about right here. Okay. All right. So just saying. So that if and when there is another one, and they've told us there's another one, rumors have been swirling that October, November of this year, we will have another one. Time will tell. God is in control. But just saying that now they're in position where the World Health Organization will now dictate and control whether or not they are going to lock down entire countries and restrict travel, etc. Okay. So we're in very different times than even where we were 5 years ago. Okay. And so actually more than 5.5 years ago, when the initial outbreak of C-19 actually occurred, okay? So you got that going on. That's another possibility of a way that things could happen and change overnight, and you may not be able to get out, all right? I hope you're thinking. Now, I'm gonna play some excerpts here of this, because this actually is gonna be talking about some things economically. I'm gonna just let this play, and then we will get into the spiritual components of what I'm sharing here.
The U.S. Treasury Department says Chinese hackers gained access to its computers in a state-sponsored cyber attack.
A bank robbed and the thieves didn't even have to set foot in the building.
It could be the biggest bank heist in history. Cyber attackers getting their hands on about
$1 billion.
Tens of thousands of patients have names, dates of birth, and private information published on the dark web.
It's now becoming clear that this malicious software has run riot around the world.
Most companies have the same vulnerability.
Look, this is a massive threat and people need to know the scale of it. As a nation, we're probably not doing enough at the moment. We need to do a lot more. And of course, all our data is wrapped up on the internet. This is not some different thing about companies that we shop in. It's about all of us. All of us hand our data over.
If a major bank was hit by a large-scale cyber attack and it couldn't be fixed for weeks, what would happen? Well, things would turn very bad very fast. Imagine tens of millions of workers not receiving their paycheck. Then imagine those workers not being able to pay rent or their mortgage payment. How would they even buy food at the store for their children? And if you're thinking that cash would save the day, so would everybody else at exactly the same time. And besides, the ATMs wouldn't work even if they were full of cash. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because stock markets would begin to crash faster than the Great Depression as people watch their pensions being wiped out. This kind of disruption would spread through the entire economy very quickly. Supermarkets rely on payment processors to keep goods moving and shelves stocked. Landlords depend on automated rent transfers to manage their finances and often to pay the mortgage payments that they have to pay. Hospitals can't function without real-life insurance and transaction approvals. And everything from fuel supplies to school payrolls depend on the constant invisible flow of these digital transactions. Even if this flow stops for mere minutes, we would instantly start to see a ripple right across the economy, or, as we'll get into later, economies. Our entire financial system depends on one fragile idea: trust. The moment that trust is broken, everything starts to crack. I've been warning about this for years, and in some places, it's already begun. Because there have been enormous cyber attacks across the world recently, and it's only getting worse. These cyber attacks are getting more frequent. If you're getting value out of this video so far, please consider subscribing, and why not share this with a friend or family member? So how could a major cyber attack like this affect us then? Well, let me give you an example. In November of 2015, hackers used a malware called Black Energy to infiltrate Ukraine's power grid. That single attack knocked out electricity for nearly 250,000 people for up to 6 hours. In December 2016, they did it again, cutting off power to large parts of Kyiv. The group responsible, known as Sandworm, has been linked to Russia's military intelligence services. Then, in December 2023, the same group launched a devastating cyber attack on Kyivstar. This is Ukraine's main telecom provider. Mobile service and internet access were completely cut off for over 24 million users. Even air raid warning systems stopped functioning. This is the power or the worry we have around everything being digital. The entire country's communications network was collapsing in real time. In April 2024, Change Healthcare in the United States was crippled by incredibly sophisticated ransomware. For those who don't know, Change Healthcare is a company that is responsible for processing insurance claims, prescription verifications, and payments across hospitals and clinics nationwide. When the system went down, pharmacies couldn't verify medications, clinics couldn't submit claims, and doctors had to cancel very important procedures. In the end, the company was forced to pay $22 million to restore its systems, but the damage was already done. It rippled through the healthcare system thereafter. What about October 2023, a ransomware attack on the British Library? destroyed nearly 600 gigabytes of archived catalog data. This included historic metadata, catalog records, and bibliographic entries. A lot of the data was lost permanently due to inadequate backups. It caused months of disruption, millions in losses, and a permanent blow to one of the UK's most respected institutions. These affected people's jobs, education, and medical care. Then, more recently, in June 2025, a report revealed that over 27% of UK businesses in particular had experienced a cyber attack in the previous 12 months. That was up from just 16% the year before. Many of these businesses reported being completely unprepared for extended downtime, so the effects were huge. Some were left fearing that just one more breach could push them over the edge, shutting them down for good. Marks & Spencer became one of the biggest casualties of this era. A cyber attack took down its online store for nearly 2 months. Clothing sales dropped by 20% and customers couldn't order school uniforms, replacement workwear, or essential winter clothing. Harrods and the Co-op were also hit hard. Millions of customer records were compromised and investigations were launched by the National Crime Agency. But here's the deeper threat. These companies store personal data. Names, addresses, payment details, email addresses, and more. When a giant like Marks & Spencer gets breached, it's almost a guarantee that their customers' personal data has been or will be compromised. That's the privacy and security of millions of people's records being stolen and potentially or usually hitting the dark web. And when your data gets exposed in these breaches, it spreads everywhere. Your name, your phone number, home address, online habits, they're all stored in these massive databases managed by data brokers. These brokers collect and sell personal information to advertisers, lead generators, and in some cases, people with far worse intentions. All of this happens without your knowledge or your consent. Control again of your data. Now, this leads us back to one hard question then. What happens when the next major cyber attack doesn't hit a retailer or a hospital, but it hits a global bank? Here's a scenario of what could happen in real time. Hackers exploit an unknown vulnerability and slip into the bank's core systems. Once inside, AI-driven malware begins erasing logs, encrypting backups, and shutting down databases. Transactions freeze, payments stop, and the bank's mobile app crashes and ATMs display blank screens. At first, people think it's just a glitch or maintenance or a temporary online outage. But within 48 hours, ATMs are out of cash, online banking is still offline, and customer service teams can't explain what's going wrong. Customers, of course, would be locked out of their online accounts, unable to access balances, make payments, or withdraw funds. Yes, I am talking about you watching this right now. This would hit all of us all at once. By the end of the first week, customers would be standing in queues outside of branches, similar to what we saw with the 2008 crisis and Northern Rock, where it all collapsed. Businesses will have missed payrolls across the board, rent won't be paid, and the bank's share price would be falling sharply. Other banks would then quickly begin to feel the pressure as customers move funds, if they can even do that. There would be a huge loss of data as well, because if the data is encrypted or destroyed via ransomware, for example, the bank could lose critical information on customer accounts, loans, and transactions. This is where we would see a massive erosion of trust. Again, it's all about trust. And a domino effect of customers from every other major bank withdrawing funds from their accounts in fear of this happening to them. If everyone nationwide tried to withdraw their funds at once, this would be absolutely catastrophic. By week 2, small businesses would begin laying off workers, supply chains would dramatically slow down, and credit card networks would see massive delays. Direct deposits will have completely failed at this point, and we would start seeing the government releasing statements, but they wouldn't be able to restore trust. Money hasn't now moved in 2 weeks by this point. If interbank lending freezes, this is where banks lose trust with each other, credit would dry up fast. This would hit businesses and customers alike. And this is where we could see a massive impact on interest rates, and central banks may be forced at this point to intervene by injecting liquidity or halting interest rate hikes to try and calm the markets. By the 3rd week, liquidity across the economy would dry up. Mortgage payments would have been missed and loan applications would be frozen. This is where people would stop spending, resulting in a huge impact on the wider market. Small and medium enterprises would begin shutting down because they simply can't receive or pay out any funds. Even digital services like transportation apps, online hotel systems, and even food delivery would be shut down. Customers would then start converting their currency into crypto or physical assets like real money, gold and silver. So prices there would start to spike. At this point, governments would likely step in to inject emergency liquidity through the central bank, similar to what happened in 2008 during the financial crisis. But here's the problem. If the transaction systems, SWIFT, BACS, ACH, etc., are down, pumping cash into the system doesn't fix anything. The rails to move the currency are broken, and this could even spark extreme civil and political unrest as people take to the streets.
Okay, so he's painting quite a picture here. So he's talking about cyber attacks. And if you remember that Klaus Schwab had actually was just telling people to listen very carefully and so forth. I can't quote him exactly, but, pay insufficient attention, I think is the way he put it, to cyber attacks. They were pointing to the year 2025. Now you have on top of that Project 2025. You have Alice Bailey, who was part of the Lucis Trust company and one of its original founders, who was very much into the New Age and the occult. And she talked about the externalization of the hierarchy in 2025. Guys, how much longer do we have left in 2025? We're 2/3 of the way through the year. Okay. And just saying that with everything that is going on, again, God is in control, but we know that the devil and these people have made plans and so forth, and they're realizing too, because the devil knows that he has a short time, okay? So he's trying to do things to bring as much havoc and chaos, and as a matter of fact, for the last couple of months, I've been feeling like everything has just drastically sped up. And as a matter of fact, while I've been sitting here, we've been on the Zoom here, I got a notification that there was yet another earthquake, a 5.8, actually, somewhere in the Pacific. And it said the Pacific actually won't stop shaking. So Pacific Coast quake. So it keeps on talking about nonstop earthquakes out in along the West Coast and or off the coast. And we know that there was a tsunami and so forth alert that was actually there before from a previous earthquake, a big 8.8 is what I'd heard. It was the highest number that I heard. That's quite a quake. Okay. And so in case you didn't know, I'd heard several years ago that the scale, what they used to consider a 10.0, actually for every increase in a full point, it actually is, I believe they said it's either 1,000 or 10,000 times more powerful. Okay, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the earthquake. But also they changed the scale several years back so that actually what we would have counted as, say, maybe 8.8 really would maybe be now more like a 9.8. Okay, so so they changed the scale and so forth as well too. So just saying that they're making it look better than it actually really is. But you see all these weather events, and I know that this is hurricane season, but you've got a couple of hurricanes and tropical storms that are out in the ocean there and threatening to come upon shore. So whether Aaron hits the U.S. or doesn't hit the U.S. or hits part of the Caribbean or doesn't hit part of the Caribbean, there are others that are actually coming behind that I know that they're concerned with here in the U.S. as well, just from a little bit that I have gathered. So we've been through the possibility of martial law and how a trial run was done here in the United States. We've been through how China could very well be actually have been being forced their citizens to accept the CBDC. One thing I failed to mention today and also in the video last night, if you would continue to listen to that video, they said that actually, even though the January 1st, 2026 is the hard deadline for no more cash in circulation and wanting people to turn in their bills and their coinage in China, but part of it was that they were actually starting in some areas of the country 6 months early. Okay? So they were starting to have people turn in stuff then and shut them off from everything else before the actual deadline of January 1st, 2026. Let that sink in. We also talked about how virus, whether it's this one or something else with the chikungunya or something else, and how lockdowns could be coming and how the World Health Organization now can actually be the ones to actually tell the whole world to go on lockdown, or they could lock you down country by country or whatever the case may be. But countries no longer have that individual decision because of the agreement that was signed roughly about a year ago. Okay. And then on top of that, then you have the possibility and likelihood of cyber attacks. And we've been seeing more and more of them, which means that you would have no access to your digital currency. You would have, before it even changes over to digital currency, you would have no access to be able to buy or sell in the stock market. So if you have a pension fund or 401k, you couldn't cash that out. You couldn't move on any positions that you have if you happen to own other stocks or company stocks or anything like that. Your medical records would become could become inaccessible. Okay, you wouldn't be able to get gas or have heat or air conditioning if you're heating and cooling that way, or electricity goes down. I mean, a cyber attack could just. I mean, he just talked about a few scenarios. It could happen and hit the electrical grid. Okay, they've been talking about that, warning about that. There have been several attempts here in the U.S. over the course of the past year or so. And your job, a lot of you have to badge in when you have to, swipe in and out on a time clock. But some of those entrances, you actually have to go to a door that won't open up unless you actually are coming through an employee entrance and you have a specific badge. So imagine not even being able to get into your job because of some electrical outage or something or another, and then you can't get in there. What about parking ramp? For those who park in parking ramps, and all of a sudden you can't get your vehicle out now unless you're going to drive through that stick that's blocking there, okay? At that gate. What about also you wouldn't maybe perhaps have access to medicine or healthcare, or insurance maybe can't be verified. We've actually already had that here in the U.S., as he mentioned in the video as well, talking about how people, one of the larger healthcare insurance processing companies or whatever, pharmacies, Walgreens and so forth went offline because they could not actually verify insurance through certain companies because of the hack that actually had happened there. So you couldn't even get your medication unless you were paying cash. Okay, so I'm just saying things can happen very, very quickly and can make it very, very difficult, if not totally impossible, to be able to get out of the city. So I want to switch the focus here spiritually. Luke chapter 17. Here it says, likewise, also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. So in other words, all this commerce and business was going on. Life was just fine. But then it says in verse 29, but the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whoever shall seek to lose his life shall preserve it. Okay, and these are words here that have been spoken to us in the book of Luke, and actually they are the words of Christ himself. And so he's actually warning us of this. I want us to look just briefly here at the story of Lot. This is coming from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 160, paragraph 1. I highly encourage you to go back and reread the chapter, but Patriarchs and Prophets, page 160, paragraph 1. That's where I'm starting from. And actually, let me see. Sorry, I wanted to start before that. Excuse me. Okay, because yes, we know the story of how the angels were actually sent to take Lot and his wife and children out of the cities and so forth. Okay, but it says here, this is actually page 153 or 159, excuse me, paragraph 3. That's where I want to start. The angels revealed to Lot the object of their mission. We will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord. And the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So the angels are telling Lot this, that the Lord sent us on a mission to destroy this city. Okay, but it says the strangers whom Lot had endeavored to protect now promised to protect him and to save also all the members of his family who would flee with him from this wicked city. So only those who actually would actually go with them to leave the city, that's who actually the Lord was promising to protect and to save. But we know that there's a turn in the story. But it says the mob that was outside the doors had wearied themselves out and departed, and Lot went out to warn his children. Okay, so he was trying to tell them that, look, the angel has come. The city is about to be destroyed, and we need you to come and to get out of the city. It says he repeated the word of the angels, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed to them as one that mocked. They laughed at what they called his superstitious fears. His daughters were influenced by their husbands. They were well enough off where they were. They could see no evidence of danger. Looks just fine. The sun is shining, not a cloud in the sky. It's beautiful outside. Nothing's about to happen. Okay. It says they could see no evidence of danger. Everything was just as it had been. Just another normal day. Okay. They had great possessions, and they could not believe it possible that beautiful Sodom would be destroyed. For those that live in America, oh, shucks, that could never happen here. Right. Lot returned sorrowfully to his home and told the story of his failure. Then the angels bade him arise and take his wife and the 2 daughters who were yet in his house and leave the city. But guess what? Lot should have been like, oh, the Lord has warned me. I believe the message and so forth. We got to get up out of here. We got to bounce. But no, Lot delayed. Though daily distressed at beholding deeds of violence, he had no true conception of the debasing and abominable iniquity practiced in that vile city. He did not realize the terrible necessity for God's judgments to put a check on sin. Y'all, this is right where we are. We don't realize that the Lord is about to, we've read these things before. He was just told, the angels were right there at his door and in his house and telling him, the Lord sent us on a mission to destroy this place. Get out of here. Come on. We're going to lead you. We're going to take you. And he's sitting, well, man, I really, really, really hate to leave this place. Everything I worked for is here. He's sorrowful, okay? And we're going to see a little bit more insight into that as we read this. But it says some of his children clung to Sodom. This is Lot's children. And his wife refused to depart without them. Ladies, let me stop right here. Now, I am officially my own child. So I have not had children of my own, but the closest that I have is my mother because I care for her now. But I can't even begin to imagine. But I just want to put a caution here. I know we love our children. I know we love other family members as well. But the Lord means what he says. And are we going to stay because we have more love for our children, for our family than we have for the Lord? Because the Lord said if that's the case, because he said, that we are to forsake, mother, father, husband, wife, children, whatever. Otherwise, we're not worthy of him. So we cannot put our love for another human being above our love for Christ. And I know that that's a hard saying. That's a hard thing. Okay. And it seems unfathomable, but you can't force somebody into obedience. Okay. And the whole thing is, though, that we will be held accountable if we're not obedient. And so here it says, Lot's wife refused to depart without them. The thought of leaving those whom he had held dearest on earth seemed more than he can bear. So Lot was struggling with this too. It wasn't just his wife. It was hard to forsake his luxurious home and all the wealth acquired by the labors of his whole life. Lord, everything I have is here. I've worked hard for this. Maybe I've even paid off my house. Lord, maybe I don't have much, but at least it's mine. That was the mentality of what Lot was actually going through in his mind, okay? And it says here, it was hard for him to forsake his luxurious home and all the wealth acquired by the labors of his whole life to go forth a destitute wanderer. Stupefied with sorrow, he lingered, loath to depart. He was greatly saddened, greatly grieved at the thought of leaving all of this behind and leaving with the clothes on his back. But for the angels of God, they would have all perished in the ruin of Sodom. So if he had just stayed there and the angels had not taken them by the hand, he'd have been lost. It says the heavenly messengers took him and his wife and the daughters by the hand and led them out of the city. Now, I want to go back to something here. He did not want to walk away from his home, and apparently he had quite a nice one, and all the wealth and all the things that he had acquired by the labors his whole life to go forth as a destitute wanderer. Some of us on this line have assets, have pension funds, have houses, maybe even have rental properties on top of the houses, but we don't want the thought of leaving all of that. But guess what? You got to put that stuff on the altar. And we're going to come to that in just a second, because all of these things, Lot did not want to leave, not just leaving those things behind, but guess what? It said that he would be going forth as a destitute wanderer. Now, did it have to be that way? Should Lot have ever pitched his tent towards Sodom? Should he have ever been in the city to begin with? No. Remember, his uncle Abraham had gone the opposite direction, but he gave Lot first choice, and he chose to pitch his tent towards Sodom and chose the greener pastures. He should have actually defaulted to his elder, his uncle, but he did not do that. And so he selfishly pitched his tent towards Sodom, and I'm sure did plenty of business there and so forth. And of course, as the town and the city grew and so forth, it just then ended up surrounding them. But the thing is, he had things that he could have sold, but he didn't want to leave them. His children, he didn't want to leave them. Okay. And because at this point, it's either do or die. It's go or fry. Okay. Not even trying to be funny, but sorry. But he did not want to go forth as a destitute wanderer, but it didn't have to be that way. He could have sold his home beforehand and actually packed up and been able to have done something in the country and done something, whether he got some land from his uncle or wherever else the Lord led him to. But instead, he waited too late, and now he was forced to leave with the clothes on his back. Guys, don't let that be you. Put your house on the market. If it ain't now the time for you to sell, then the Lord is not going to allow it to move, okay? And he knows what you need, so go ahead and put the price up there. You can always drop it, but I'm saying you can even put it higher. And if the Lord wants you to move, trust me, he's going to move that bad boy, okay? So I'm just saying, don't let anything hold you back. And I'll take this time just to share a brief testimony with you. I have friends. They were feeling the conviction to get to the city. They had been to a camp meeting that was talking about country living. They both individually were convicted, husband and wife, and felt impressed that we need to leave the cities. Then they got back home and got comfortable. Life settled back in. They're still working their jobs and, in corporate America and yada, yada, and everything is going on a-okay. And they heard the message and the call again, and the Lord was individually impressing both the husband and the wife separately. And then they talked about it, and they were like, again, man, we've wasted time here, And I think, as a matter of fact, I think they might have actually purchased a property and acted partly, but they just did not get out. But I think they had already purchased the property, but now they were like, no, we got to go. But by this time, they are in a large metropolitan area. They are there, and they actually started renovating their bathroom in their house. And the whole bathroom is tore up, inoperable, can't use it, and everything is torn up, and they're feeling the call to go to the country. The wife decided, the husband and wife decided together, but we're going to put this on the market. Tore up bathroom and all. Okay, in shambles, can't use it, unfunctional, dysfunctional, can't use it. We're going to put it on the market anyhow. And they did that. And they asked God for a couple of things. We said, Lord, we want a cash buyer because cash buyers can close quickly. And they named the price that they wanted. And they said, we want to sell it for sale by owner. They put a sign in the yard. As a matter of fact, I have another friend and her husband who did the same thing, but I'll tell you that story next. But they put the sign in the yard. Do you know that there was a lady who constantly came to that neighborhood because her parents lived in the neighborhood, and she had already fixed in her mind that, what, my parents are getting older. I want to be closer to them. If a house goes up for sale in this neighborhood, I want to go take a look at it, and I will buy it if I can. Do you know that she came and she's the one that ended up buying the house? But do you know that in a matter of a week or two, they had 3 offers on their house, all over asking price, with a tore up bathroom? So I don't care what condition your house is in. If you're able to start fixing on it in faith, but just go ahead and put the price of where it should be, or where whatever you and God discuss and so forth, you can always come down. You can always take less than, and it makes the person coming to buy and to look feeling like, okay, well, if they really want the house and if that's who really God is leading to buy the house from you, he will cause them to be like, oh man, well, shucks, maybe we can get them down, X number of dollars. And if we do, then we're walking away with a good deal. Okay. All right. But I'm just saying that way you got it at a price that you can always come down. It's harder to go up, but you can always come down. But that way, if you're fixing it up and you've got more money into it, then, to get it up to where it would have been otherwise. But just, I'm saying, step out on faith. And I'm not saying move haphazardly. You do need to have a plan. Okay. But just figure out something, whether it's a temporary thing or a permanent thing. Because if the Lord moves that thing quick, you need to know where you're going. Okay. Even if it's a temporary thing and you don't know where the final resting place is. So that's their story. They got out and sold that thing and they're in the country. Another couple of friends of mine, husband and wife, they were feeling impressed. We need to move to the country. And so they actually decided, you know what, we're going to sell the thing. So they talked about it. So the wife said, you know what, well, we've already agreed to sell it. She said, I'm not even going to tell my husband until the next day. But she said, I'm going to go ahead and put this thing up on the internet for sale by owner. I think she put it on Craigslist or something like that. Okay. Put that thing online. All of a sudden, that evening that she put it up for sale by owner, that they were going to do their, own closing or whatever with the title company and whatnot, they got a call. Somebody had been looking for a house in their very neighborhood, and come to find out they had a townhouse, and come to find out their townhouse was unique. There wasn't another one like it in the whole subdivision. And this is exactly what the man was looking for. I think he was either an eye doctor or a dentist. And he lived way on the other side of town. Not the same town, but on the other side of the metropolitan area. But it was exactly what he was looking for. And do you know that they're like, whoa, the house sold so quick. Okay. And I think he gave him full asking price, whatever it was. Maybe he even offered more. I don't know. But anyhow, but whatever it was, they were able to sell their house. But they were like, well, shucks, we're not ready to go. We got kids in school, this, that, the other. The man said, no problem. I don't need to occupy right away. So they were able to do a lease back with the man. So they sold the house to them and then turned around and leased it to him through the end date that they needed to be there for school and to give them time to get out and so forth. So don't tell me that God can't work something out for your situation. Okay. And so they were able to lease the thing, which is like renting, but it's just a different type of agreement. But it's very similar to renting. But anyhow, they leased it back from the man and paid him to continue to stay there because they would have been paying the mortgage anyhow. All right. And then they were able to actually vacate. So again, just saying, those of you who have assets, those of you who have things that you can do with it, those who have extra vehicles, those who have motorhomes or RVs or extra property or rental properties or something, start liquidating. Okay. And watch God move. And again, Lot and his wife had problems because they did not want to leave what was there. Let me go to the SDA Bible commentary here. I won't be much longer. When it talked about the stuff in the house that we read about in Luke chapter 17, it says, when life itself is at stake, worldly possessions have little value. Your life is at stake. All this stuff that you've accumulated and so forth is not going to mean anything to you if you have to leave it at the peril of your life, at the risk of your life. I mean, or to save your life. Okay, because you'll just be happy to get out alone. Yes, you'll be sorrowful, for the things that you lost and whatnot, but you should be grateful to be alive. Okay, and it says, and to endeavor to save them may lead to the loss of life itself. So in other words, trying to save your possessions may lead to a loss of life yourself, because remember the context of the text over here. Let me go back to it. It was Luke Luke chapter 17, but verse 31. In that day, he shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house. Let him not come down to take it away. That's the phrase that we're looking at. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Okay. So this phrase about the stuff that's in their house, again, when life itself is at stake, worldly possessions have little value, and to endeavor to save those things, okay, may lead to the loss of life itself. Possession in Sodom were of no value to Lot when he had to flee, because he realized, if I don't go, I'm gonna be consumed with this city. He was fortunate to escape with his life. Okay. And then here where it says, remember Lot's wife, that's verse 32. That's one of the shortest texts in the Bible. So you got Jesus wept, you got pray without ceasing, and then you got remember Lot's wife. Okay. 3 shortest texts in the Bible. Lot's wife became a pathetic example of the results of inordinate affection for the material things of this life. It was her desire to hold on to the things she had just left behind in Sodom that caused her death. So her children and her possessions and all of her friends and all the little golf club things that they maybe went to and all the little tea parties and luncheons and so on and so forth and all the little walking buddies that she used to walk the neighborhood with, whatever it was, the little book club that she was involved with, the little group in women's ministry at church, it doesn't matter. Okay? These are the things that she wanted to hold on to, and they led to her dying and turning to a pillar of salt. And she has forever been memorialized as such. All right. Now, the commentary on Genesis 19:26, where it talks about how Lot's wife looked back. It says the angels had led all four of them out. So that's Lot, his wife, and the two daughters that were unmarried that were still at home. The ones that were married stayed in the cities with their husbands because remember, they were laughing and mocking and said, hey, ain't nothing going to happen. It's all good. We're good here. Peace out. Okay. It says here the angels had led all four of them out. So Lot and his wife and their two younger daughters out of the doomed city and given them explicit instructions as to what to do and what to avoid doing if they would save their lives. If they would save their lives. But merely to escape from the city was not sufficient. Continued compliance with instructions was necessary. Lot's wife looked back to the city where her home and possessions and some of her children were. She now refused to give them up. Her obdurate heart has made her memory a perpetual warning to those who would like to be saved, but who are content with halfway measures. Want to be saved, but don't want to give up this other stuff. Want to go to heaven, but don't want to give up my pet sins and the things that I value. Okay? All right. And it says, she now refused to give them up. Her obdurate heart has made her memory a perpetual warning to those who would like to be saved, but who are content with halfway measures, who seem to forsake the world, but whose hearts are still in it. Because you can bring the country or the city mentality right with you to the country. So you can still get Netflix and HBO and, what's the Lifetime network? Don't ask me nothing about that. But you can still get all of these things in Hulu and take all of that and you're and the baseball and football and basketball games and the worldliness and the competitive sports. You can take all that to the country. Okay. You can take the pornography and everything else too. You got internet. I'm not saying to do that, but I'm just saying the mentality has to be different and we cannot be content with halfway measures. We have to forsake the world and otherwise we are going to be lost. And our hearts are still in the world. And then that's not what is going to fit us for heaven. But it says, not enduring until the end, they cannot be saved. It is well not to forget the solemn admonition of our Lord, remember Lot's wife. Greater firmness on Lot's part in heeding the angel's command would have meant her salvation. So his wife was lost on account of Lot lingering. Husbands, men, I beseech you to be the priest and the leaders of your homes. We women need that. We long for that. Some don't appreciate it, but that's what God requires of you. And looking out and making provisions and looking to the future and seeing what's coming down the pipe. I mean, the Lord says in his word, and I'm paraphrasing, that basically, the wise man basically seeth the danger and prepares for it. Okay. And that's one of the things, I mean, you don't have to be a man to do that. I mean, and we got single women that are on here as well. But, if you see some things coming, it's best to get out of harm's way. Okay. But again, men, please lead. Please be the men that God has asked you to be and take up the responsibility that he's given you to be the priest of your household so that you don't have to give an account to God as to why your family is not in the kingdom. Okay. All right. And it says, so yes, greater firmness on Lot's part in heeding the angel's command would have meant her salvation. The angels had forced her to leave the city, but they could not affect her salvation against her will. So even though she left, because there's no guarantee that you're going to be saved just because you moved to the country. Okay, that's a step in the right direction, but that's not what guarantees a salvation. It's a heart change. We're going to talk about that momentarily too. The angels, she was naturally an irreligious person, unconverted, okay? Probably a native of Canaan. She chose to die rather than to leave Sodom. We lament her fate. Let us profit by her example. So she chose death when Christ says, hey, I have set before you life and death. Choose life. She chose to die rather than to leave Sodom and to give up all these creature comforts and her way of living, her lifestyle, her standard of living. and you know what, and now I got to leave with the clothes on my back. I'm homeless. It didn't have to be that way. It should never have been that way. That was not God's design. But literally, they were leaving under duress. Okay. And then when it says here, the commentary on pillar of salt, it cannot, I think it meant to say, be said, how long the pillar salt containing her body remained visible. In some places, the southwestern shore of the Dead Sea is lined with salt rock formations, some of them roughly resembling human figures. Travelers are called one or another of them Lot's wife. Okay, but of course, this is frivolous, to try to attempt to identify this. But just saying, we have history there to prove what is to be. You don't want to be like the man for 7 years going up and down the streets of Jerusalem, as GC, Great Controversy, chapter 1, page 30, paragraph 1 actually talks about. For 7 years, a man continued to go up and down the streets of Jerusalem, telling people, get out, right? Okay. And declaring the woes that were to come upon the city. This city is doomed, it's prescribed, right? Okay. But it says, but by day and by night, he chanted the wild dirge, a voice from the east, a voice from the west, a voice from the four winds, a voice against Jerusalem and against the temple, a voice against the bridegrooms and the brides, a voice against the whole people. This is what he was going up and down the street saying. It says, this strange being was imprisoned and scourged, but no complaint escaped his lips. To insult and abuse, he only answered, woe, woe to Jerusalem. So he knew the prophecies, woe, woe to the inhabitants thereof. His warning cry ceased not until he was slain. He was killed in the siege that he had foretold. We don't want to be the one that's telling other people to get out, but then we're not even doing anything ourselves to do that. Okay? Not one Christian perished in the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay? And Christ had given his disciples warning, and all who believed his words watch for the promised sign. When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, said Jesus, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And that's from Luke 21, verses 20 and 21. Okay. And we went through this portion about Cestius, but I want to jump down a little bit here because it talked about terrible were the calamities that fell upon Jerusalem when the siege was resumed by Titus. Because remember, it was Cestius first. We talked about it at the beginning of the presentation here. It says the city was invested at the time of Passover, where millions of Jews were assembled within its walls. In other words, people were still feast keeping, not realizing that we no longer needed to do that. So they were actually taking and practicing, doing religious practices that were no longer required. So first of all, don't get caught up in false winds of doctrine, okay? And it doesn't just relate to feast keeping, all right? But that's one thing that they were doing, and so they didn't even realize what day and time it was and that prophecy had already been fulfilled. Christ was and is our Passover, but yet this is actually AD 70, and actually they're still keeping feast days. Well, guess what? They can't keep them now, okay? And yeah, but anyhow, but it says here, that the city was invested at the time of Passover, where millions of Jews were assembled within its walls. But listen to this. It says the stores of provision, which if carefully preserved, would have supplied the inhabitants for years. So they had plenty of food. Okay. And it says had previously been destroyed through the jealousy and revenge of the contending factions. And now all the horrors of starvation were experienced. You think that there might have been some people who were thinking and contemplating about getting to the country between Cestius surrounding the city and when Titus returned? You think that some people may have either tried to shelter in place or perhaps, get some beans, some rice, some oats, and putting them up in storage, for their preparing for, harder times and preparing for perhaps moving to the country? You think they might have done that? I believe that some of those groups were people that were contemplating moving to the country, or saying, I'm going, but just not right now. I gotta retire. My kids gotta graduate from school. I got my grandbabies. I want to see them grow up. I want to be around them. I want to visit them. I want to travel the world. I got some other business I got to tend to, and I'm not ready to retire yet from my business that I've established and so forth. And I want to stay and I want to sell that. Whatever the excuse, they did not get out. And when you go down here, it talks about how bad the famine was. A measure of wheat was sold for a talent. So fierce were the pangs of hunger that men would gnaw on the leather of their belts and sandals and the covering of their shields. Great numbers of people would steal out at night to gather wild plants growing outside the city walls, though many were seized and put to death with cruel torture, and often those who returned in safety were robbed of what they had gleaned at so great peril. Do you think that some of them had some skills? could identify some wild edible plants. We just read it. So they were gathering their skills. One day I'm gonna move to the country, you know, or I'm gonna learn how to do this so that when it comes running time, you know, great time of trouble, you know, the time of trouble comes and, you know, I'm gonna run to the country and so forth. At least I'll know how to identify some edible plants, wild edible plants. Well, just remember the 2 times of trouble. And this is where people get confused. Okay. But they actually had some skills. They could identify wild edible plants, but yet they were still in the city. Talking to somebody. I don't know who. This is taken from One Letters and Manuscripts, manuscript number 3 from 1849. Dear brethren and sisters, it's from Sister White. The Lord has shown me in vision that it is contrary to the Bible to make any preparations for our temporal wants during the time of trouble. Now, I just need to stop and clarify here. This is not the little time of trouble which we are about to embark upon, which begins at the Sunday law. The time of trouble that she's referring to is after Michael has stood up in Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, and the time of trouble that has never been since there's been a nation on this world with the falling of the 7 last plagues. That's the time of trouble that she's talking about. So when she's saying, because people misuse this and take this out of context and say that, see, we're not supposed to care and be stocking up and putting things away and aside, you know, this is contrary to the Lord's will and, you know, for the Bible to make any preparation for our temporal wants. Well, you're in the wrong time of trouble. Okay, she said, I saw that if the saints have food laid up by them or in fields in that time of trouble, okay, when the 7 last plagues are about to fall, after human probation is closed, she said, when sword, okay, that's when the death decree is going to go forth. Okay, when sword, famine, and pestilence is in the land, it shall be taken from them by violent hands. So that's the time of trouble that we're not supposed to actually be trying to prepare for, because we're going to have to leave our country homes and then flee to the mountains. Okay, and she said, then will be the time for us to trust in God and he will sustain us. So this is not the little time of trouble. We are to prepare for that. We are to move to the country before that time ensues. But then we will have to leave those homes in the country and flee to the mountains. And that's the time that now she's saying that the Lord will sustain us when we actually are trusting in him at that time. I saw that our bread and water would be sure. Again, she's talking about at that time when we don't have the provisions that she has already told us that you need to be in the country where you can grow your own provisions, because the issue of buying and selling is going to be a very serious one. Okay, so she counseled us to move to the country, and that will be one of the benefits that we would actually have, is being able to raise our own provisions. Well, now this is the time, totally different time, where now we're not going to be relying on those provisions, because she said if we had laid up food or had stuff in the fields in the big time of trouble, okay, when sword, famine, and pestilence is in the land, it would be taken from us by violent hands. But she says now, in this big time of trouble, then will be the time for us to trust in God and he will sustain us. I saw that our bread and water would be sure at that time, and we should not lack or suffer hunger. The Lord has shown me that some of his children would fear when they see the price of food rising, and they would buy food and lay it by for the time of trouble. Again, this is the big time of trouble. Then in the time of need, I saw them go to their food and look at it, and it had bread worms and was full of living creatures and not fit for use. Again, big time of trouble. She said, about 1 week since the Lord showed me in vision that houses and lands will be of no use in the time of trouble, again, the big time of trouble, and that in that time they could not be disposed of. So you won't even be able to sell your house at a certain time. Didn't that happen to Lot? He was in a big time of trouble, okay, in his day, because that city was about to be destroyed by God. So he was in a big time of trouble, and he was going to have to rely totally upon God for his bread and his water and leave with the clothes on his back when he could have disposed of it. But now he can't even sell his house. He has no time to buy or sell. Okay. And she said, I saw that it was the will of God that the saints should cut loose from every encumbrance, dispose of their houses and lands before the time of trouble comes. And again, the big time of trouble, and thus make a covenant with God by sacrifice. So we will have to lay everything on the altar. So even if you move to the country now, don't count on being there until Jesus comes, because we're going to then have to move and actually not move. We're going to have to just flee to the mountains. So we're not moving as in we're taking stuff with us. We're just going to the mountains where the Lord will then sustain us, and angels will lead us and guide us to other believers and so forth, and will gather us and unite us together. Okay. So we're going to have to put everything on the altar, both now and also in that large time of trouble, because we will not be able to even sell our houses in the country at that time, or our lands in the country at that time. Okay. And so it says here, I saw that if they would sell, I saw they would sell if they laid their property on the altar and earnestly inquired for duty. Because now she's talking about what to do with these things and how it will help to spread the advancement for God's work. God will teach them when to dispose of these things. Then they will be free in the time of trouble and have no clogs to weigh them down. If any held on to their property and did not inquire duty of God, in other words, ask God what he requires of them, he would not make duty plain. In other words, he would not tell them, okay, as far as what they should do, and they would be left to keep their property. And then in the time of trouble, their property would come up before them like a mountain to crush them. Then they tried to get rid of it, but could not. I heard them mourn like this: God's people were suffering for truth. The cause was languishing, but we made no effort to supply the lack. In other words, the means. Okay. And now our property is useless. Money that I could have put into spreading the gospel to help other people to be saved. But because I was selfish and I was thinking about myself and just trying to retain my little country property and so forth, when I could have been putting this into the cause of God, my property is loose. I can't even sell it. And now I'm gonna have to walk away. And it says, oh, that we had let it go and laid up treasure in heaven. I saw that the sacrifice did not increase, but decreased and was consumed. I also saw that God had not required all of his people to dispose of their property at the same time, but in the time of need, he would teach them if they desired to be taught when to sell and how much to sell. I saw that some had been required to dispose of their property in past time to sustain the Advent cause, while he had permitted others to keep theirs until a time of need. Then as the cause needs it, their duty is to sell. So I want to give you the other caveat. So you're in the city right now, or you have lands and houses, or you have RVs and boats or yachts, or, additional properties or rental properties or whatever. Lay everything on the altar, but don't go and spend all that money back on yourself or a palace in the country. Okay? Take and put some of that money aside, and as much as you possibly can in the Lord's work, because guess what? Even the property in the country, it's going to burn, baby, burn. Okay, so we're not here to, and I'm a strong proponent of the things that we do and the things that we acquire in this earth. The more that we are attached to them, just like Lot's wife, and just like Lot, even his luxurious home and everything that he worked for. That's why they didn't want to leave. Y'all, this world is not our own, or this is not our home. We're just passing through. We're looking for a better country. Okay, we're looking for a better one that is builder and maker is God himself. And so the more we have here on this earth for ourselves, the less likely we're going to be to want to walk away from it. So I'm trying to encourage us to put our all on the altar and not wait until it's too late and then not spend all that money on ourselves. Put it back into the cause of God. Help somebody else also get to the country. Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have them on your property, because that's maybe not the best thing to do or how God would design it. But maybe you can help somebody who's less fortunate, doesn't have the money, but would like to be on a property in the country. Or maybe there's somebody who's a senior that can't live on their own as far as like maintaining everything for themselves, but they would like to have a place in the country. Okay, you need to be very prayerful about that and how you go about that and how the Lord lead you, because you do need to be on the same page spiritually, but we got to be converted ourselves. So, and as we're bringing this to a close here, Matthew 7:7-8 says, ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. We stop there, but read number 8. It says, for everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. That's a promise, y'all. Too often we get stuck at asking without seeking. And if we moved on to seeking, we become discouraged and we stop the process. We get comfortable again and hey, everything's back to normal. We're all good. The restrictions are lifted. I ain't got to wear the diaper on my face. My job is no longer mandating the juice or getting tested or whatever. Everything's okay. No, it ain't. Okay. But again, let's ask. But let's complete the process. Let's seek. So you got to keep on looking. And I'm telling you, you will go through a whole process. I can spend time just on that. You will go through a whole process of mindset and mind shift and, exploring different possibilities. And you will go through different housing types and so forth. But you just keep on asking, seeking, but then knock. See if that door will be open unto you. If not, you're closer. You're one rejection closer to getting a yes. Okay. They even teach you that in sales. All right, because in sales, I know it's a numbers thing, but with this, it's a God thing, and it's where he wants you to be. So again, the promise is for everyone that asketh, receiveth, and he that seeketh, findeth, and to him that knocketh, it shall be opened. Now, Sister Rhonda asked me to share something here because our ministry, Exodus in the Journey, this is our website, exodusinthejourney.org. We actually very much believe in country living. That's not the only thing that we talk about and speak on and so forth, but we are actually having a country living and spiritual preparedness boot camp. Now, I will tell you that there aren't a whole lot of spots left. We're still actually filling this, but registration is still open, and some people have thought that they could come, but then can't come now. So you just never know. But if you're serious about country living, I can't guarantee you if we'll have space or not, but go ahead and fill out the form anyhow. But if you go to our website, scroll down to you see this wording, Exodus Boot Camp, just click on it, and it would actually take you to a pre-registration or head count form here. Fill in your first and last name, your phone number, the state or country that you're visiting from, your email address, and then how many people, how many male, how many female. It does need to be for ages 12 and up because of what we're going to be doing. It's taking place here in Tennessee, in Hillham, Tennessee, and it will be September 28th through August 3rd. So that is actually a Sunday, and then we're breaking camp and leaving first thing Friday morning, October 3rd. All right. So go ahead and submit that. I will call you. I will send you some documents for you to review, but there are a lot of questions that are already answered down here. If you scroll down past the form, and we're very happy to announce we're putting together another flyer. I'll see that Sister Rhonda gets it, but will be our speaker and some of the topics, but it's going to be a hands-on thing so that you're actually learning some skills for country living. We're going to be putting together some rain catchment systems. Okay. So you're coming to roll up your sleeves, not to just come and just watch. Oh, that's nice. That's so cute. Oh, how'd you do that? Oh, good job, girl. No, this is not that. Okay. So you want to come and roll up your sleeves. And that's why we got the boots. Hope did an excellent job with this. She's got the gloves, the hammer and so forth, got your Bible and the praying hands there. But you're actually coming to learn country living skills. And so we'll be putting up a rain catchment system and also a ground mount system for solar panels. Okay, we're not putting in a whole solar system, but we're putting in the panels and how to mount them and how you need to secure them and so on and so forth. So if you click on information here, you'll get an idea of what the cost is going to be. And if you're staying at the lodge with us, it's communal, it's rustic, it's bunk bed style, but you are in a lodge or a cabin with electricity and running water and all that stuff. Okay, it's not fancy, but it's clean and so forth. So if you're staying with us, it'll tell you what's included, but the fee schedule is actually here and so on and so forth. And actually here, you can actually just get an idea of the cost here. And there is just a small processing fee that actually gets added to each of these. But so with processing fee, it's $306.80 a person because otherwise it's $295 a person. So that's 5 nights, 4 days. You'll get 2 meals a day as specified on our website. And then if you want to have your own lodging and so forth, then you're responsible for that. And the price drops from there. But I just wanted to make you aware, but you'll get a lot of your questions answered here. And there's a list of alternative lodging facilities. So if you wanted to bring an RV or something, there are other places. Unfortunately, the campgrounds that we'll be at, the RV and tent area is, they're actually renovating that whole area. They just started gutting that and redoing that. So it's not available within this park. But the first facility listed on there, that state park, there are other cabins that are available and you can maybe share a cabin with yourselves because some of them are group cabins. Some of them are just, for, smaller family or whatever. And there is a little motel. Also Valley View Motel that's on the list and so forth. But there are a lot of questions that are answered here already, and we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So what you should do if you are interested in coming to this, after you've reviewed the things on this page, go ahead and fill out this, and we'll make sure that we also email you the documents. And actually what is emailed is just slightly more up to date than the website because I added a section regarding dress code. But at any rate, everything other than that is actually on the website here, and I will email you forms if you fill this out and ask you to review that before actually you can we actually register you, because we want to make sure everybody is just clear on things and what to expect, what to bring. A whole bunch of stuff is covered in regards to that. So that's what I've got. But exodusinthejourney.org is the website, and you can find the information there. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's what I got for you all. And so I don't know if there are any questions or anything, I'm just going to try to peruse the chat here, but you can certainly raise your hand if you would like. They asked me to facilitate the Q&A portion. So if you have a question, you can go down to your reactions tab. Sorry, I got a gnat in here. These things get all up in your face. But if you want to go down to reactions, and then you can actually raise your hand, and I will acknowledge you. Otherwise, you can also, if you're on a cell phone, you can hit *6 to unmute, and I will call out the last 4 digits of your phone number, and we can answer your questions that way. Okay, going over to Galaxy Note 9. If you'll go ahead and unmute, you should see a prompt on your end. And if you want to go ahead, Galaxy Note 9. Okay, go ahead with your question, please.
I think that's me, Sister Carmen. This is Brother Curtis.
Hey.
Yes, I came on late. Do you have a recording for this program?
Yes, they do. They're live streaming to Table of Christ is on YouTube. So if you go to Table of Christ on YouTube, yes.
Yes, I would like to see the beginning because I forgot it was Eastern Standard Time. I came on time, but I was in, Central. But anyway, I just have a comment. I love, country living is my thing, but I had a important discussion with interesting discussion with some Seventh-day Adventists, some folks. And it seems to me like I've been talking, and you covered some of it. There are a lot of people that moved, some of my friends within our community, and they don't seem to get it that they have to, that there's 2 times of troubles, that they have to provide some food. They keep using that text in Isaiah, I think it was 33 that you quoted, 33 or 30, that says, that talk about the bread and water being sure. Like, they come to the country and they don't have to grow anything. I mean, they could still go to Walmart and buy food. And I'm like, and I'm listening to these people and I'm like, you come to the country, you've seen all these food shortages. You talk about the grid going down, because you can't even buy stuff when the grid go down for some people. They wouldn't even sell you if there's stuff to buy or to sell. Right. And some of my folks, they're literally, telling me, oh, well, we know where to come, because you see, I do a lot of gardening. So I'm like, I'm like a Hebrew slave right now trying to grow stuff. I was in the sun. I just, it gets hot. It's hot in Tennessee. And I'm coming, so I'm like, wait, so you are poised, enjoying either city life. I mean, I'm switching between 2 things. I just sharing, enjoying city life, but when things get hard, you know where to come. And then the folks that are here, they say the same thing because they don't want to. Some people say, I don't want to get my hands dirty, so they don't want to plant. And to me, it's almost as if you are expecting something out of people that you don't even want to do. So you don't want to do farming because, you'll get your hands dirty, or it's too difficult, or you don't want to learn. But I've always, there's a quote in the Spirit of Prophecy that said, it doesn't matter if you live in a cottage or a mansion, but you do have to eat though.
Yeah. Even
if you're in a tent. So that's my observation with people, because, and I was listening to you and you touched on it. I mean, not some of it actually on the way people it just sort of is baffling to me that you would come to the country. But I believe that some people come because others come, meaning that they don't really have the full scope of there's going to be 2 times the trouble. So people will quote that reading that, your food will be destroyed at that time or taken with violent hands. But what about when COVID happened? Did you not see a food shortage for a short time and you had to have food? Right. And, people was fighting for toilet paper of all things. But if you think about it, we still have an obligation to help people. And a lot of what I'm doing, I know is probably not going to help Seventh-day Adventists. It's probably going to help non-Adventists. And the other point I want to make is I had a conversation with a client of mine called me, and I was telling him, I said, man, I'm building a road, I'm bartering. I said, everything that people talk about country living, I have to do to survive. It's not, well, I came with money and I'm getting it done. So I had made a chat, in the chat, made a response to say that, one thing I heard you saying is that, people selling houses, but there are some that don't have houses, but you still have to obey. It doesn't mean that the country living is for those who have houses or who have money. You could come here without money and trust in God, and He will still provide for you. I am living proof of that. I mean, I'm getting a road built right now by bartering with somebody. Guess what? His truck broke down. I'm helping him fix the bed of the truck. We took engine off, parts from one to make one. And guess what? I'll buy my rock, but then he's going to transport it for me for free. So everything that you pretty much talk about, like, you know, oh, you sell a house now. But those who don't will sit down and say, well, I ain't got no money. Well, that's still not an excuse not to move.
Yeah. I didn't even get into any of that because Brother Curtis, you know my story on that. And by the way, y'all, Brother Curtis will actually, he and his wife, Brother Curtis Bellamy and his wife Karmen will be guests at our boot camp. They will be presenting. And so, yeah, so he's been on our platform several times, but he's exactly right. And I'm gonna quote you, Brother Bellamy, because you always say that, you know, there's a difference between living in the country and practicing country living.
Amen.
And that's exactly what you're
Amen.
describing. People who want to live there but still want to go and I'm not saying it's a sin to shop at Walmart right now, but you need to be moving towards becoming self-sufficient and living off of the land.
Well, let me say something. The friend that I was talking to who was telling me that, you know, he have to ask God what to do because he's, you know, he got a little money so he could buy stuff, but you don't even know what kind of food you're buying in Walmart, sister. I'm cooking some food right now, some beans. I've just picked my onions that I grew. Okay, let me tell you, onions, garlic, cilantro, thyme, parsley, everything, even the potatoes. And do you know how good my pot tastes? You can't buy food to taste like this. But the taste is one thing. But when you buy stuff in Walmart and some of these places, the water that they wetting these plants with is toxic. You're not even supposed to touch it. But then you're eating the food. So you can, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't buy stuff at a store. But you cannot rely on it because the enemy is trying to destroy people through food. That's what he did with Eve. So he's doing the same thing with us.
Yep.
You know, I'm kind of passionate about this, so sorry if I'm talking loud or whatever. But the point is it really baffles me when my people who's supposed to know, but I you know what the problem is too? A lot of people haven't even read the book Country Living or even the excerpts or wherever it came from at all. They're just going by what others think. And when we're dealing with this crisis, it's not going to be what I think, it's what does the Bible or what does the spirit of prophecy or what does providence say. That's how I see this crisis going to play out for us, you know. So, and anyway, thank you for your presentation. I would love to see the beginning of it because I missed it.
Okay. All right. Nope. Appreciate that. So I'm glad you were able to chime in as well. So, yeah, folks, you know, time is short here. And I just wanted to address somebody was just saying that, you know, they were saying it's very easy to purchase a countryside property in the USA, even if a person is on a low income, but much harder to purchase in some countries. But I just want to encourage you. Everybody's situation is different and where people reside is different, but it costs a lot of money to buy stuff here in the US as well. And a lot of people are struggling, but God is more than able. I didn't even get a chance to share any of my portions of testimonies. That's a whole nother presentation probably by itself, because the Lord, I was just determined, and you know, but the Lord basically dropped a tiny home in my lap. He dropped a 4-wheel drive vehicle in my lap. He's in the process of dropping a 0-turn commercial mower in my lap. Okay, but I wouldn't have these things if I had not put my faith and trust in God, and if I had not been asking, seeking, and knocking. Literally, I went and looked for a vehicle. It didn't have let me back up. I went and looked for a home. It was a tiny house, just to look and see if it was possible. Didn't have not even 2 pennies to rub together, let alone nickels. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. And the Lord sent me somebody that day who said, how much do you need to secure the home today? And I said, what? They said, how much do you need to secure? I'm like, I heard you, but I'm like, I'm not asking you for money. I just asked for you to pray. And they were like, I didn't ask you none of that. They're like, God put it on my heart to put up the money. How much do you need? And I was like, Lord, have mercy. So I'm just saying, money is not really our problem. It's our lack of faith, our lack of trust in God. Okay. Money is no object for God. And it doesn't matter what your income, what your situation, He will cause people to bless you. Okay. Fast forward. My truck rusted out and the bottom of it, and that thing, the engine still went. It was a 1996 4Runner. I missed that truck, man. And I had that thing for 19 years, bought it with 95,000 miles on it. And the thing had like either 319 or 329 on it. And the thing still wanted to go. And, but the rust got to it and it got to be too unsafe to drive because my gas tank could drop on me. And if that's the case, then I'm toast. So I needed a truck. I was able to borrow a vehicle, but the vehicle came and it had car problems, had engine problems, leaking oil. The thing's filling up my whole yard with smoke. I'm driving on that thing for about a year. I said, Lord, please. I said, I don't know if I'm gonna make it with this thing. And I got my mom to care for, and I got medicine sometimes to pick up for her and other things. And, you know, that's my only vehicle. And I was grateful to have it. Don't get me wrong. But and I paid for some of the repairs on it and so forth, but it just was beyond, the scope and so forth. And it wasn't really my vehicle. So anyhow, long story short, I said, Lord, I'm just starting to look in faith. So I looked for about 2 months, night after night, just looking on Facebook Marketplace, looking at other places and so forth, trying to see where I could find a vehicle. And I'm like, Lord, okay, you know that I'm trying to be in the country and so forth. And, I need something 4-wheel drive. Otherwise, I would be looking for a 4-wheel drive here in Tennessee, but I need something 4-wheel drive. I could not afford another Toyota that was a 4-wheel drive. So the Lord led me to a Subaru. But before I found the Subaru, I was praying and so forth. And my sister called me one day. And so she said, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. And so she's like, because I just told the Lord, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I just have to trust that you're going to do it. Because the Lord told me to put in an orchard instead. So I put in the fruit orchard, and the Lord blessed me with a fruit orchard and the vehicle. Okay. Instead of me saving money to take care of, my transportation needs, he told me, no, go put the orchard in. So I was obedient and put in the orchard, and the Lord blessed me with both by the time I was done. And so she said, somebody wants to give you $4,000 towards the purchase of a car. I said, say what? I just sat and cried. Y'all. That was a direct answer to prayer. I'm telling you, just start looking and seeking, asking, knocking, and just tell the Lord, I don't know how you're going to do it. I'm standing on your promises. I was claiming scriptures in Malachi chapter 3, about bringing a faithful tithe into the storehouse. And, and I said, there be meeting. The Lord said, improve me now herewith. I said, Lord, I'm proving you. I'm standing on your word. If I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you won't have room enough to receive it. Now rebuke the devourer for your sake. Man, I was claiming the whole enchilada, okay? So that was just one of the things. Isaiah 54:5 was another one. I said, Lord, you said that you're my husband. I don't have a earthly husband. So you're my husband, and I need my husband to bring home another paycheck because I can't afford to do this all on my own. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm trying to be a good steward. I'm trying to put, whatever I can into a country living. But I said, Lord, I'm asking you to exceed. First, I started praying meet or exceed my paycheck, but I started praying and asking the Lord to exceed my paycheck, and he's been giving me stuff. I said, whether you want to do it, in providing equipment or whatever it is, however you see fit, or if you just want to put the cash, if you want to put the equipment, whatever you want to do, just feel free to do it. So Lord has saved me money on stuff, and he gave me the money for a car, and I was able to find one in that price range, and it was a little Subaru Outback, and I'm just like, Lord. And then I'm mentioning one day to a lady, hey, I got a down tree. I just ended up having to cut up on my property. And I'm like, I had never cut up a tree before, but I had to do it. And I wasn't complaining. I said, it was me, the Lord, and the angels. We were out there on that property, get that tree cleared and out of the way. And I said, the Lord just helped me to do it. But I said, I got so many needs. I said, I got a long list of equipment because I went shopping for a mower, y'all. Went shopping for a commercial mower, had it down to 2 brands. And I said, Lord, if it's your will, I'm torn between a Skag mower and a Hustler. And I was kind of leaning a little bit towards the Hustler. And then my neighbor's son just told me not too long ago, a couple months ago, he wouldn't go with the Hustler. And so anyhow, we had that conversation, but I was down to those 2. I had already gone and made my visits here locally, and I looked at the X mark as well, but I narrowed it down to those 2. And I said, Lord, you know what my needs are? This is what I'm asking for. I'm talking to a sister one day. And so she's like, 0 turn? You said you need a 0 turn mower? I have one. You can have it. Guys, I was like, are you kidding me? That's better than my little 2 scissors, my little blades for scissors trying to cut some grass. Because if y'all only knew, I'm out there weed whacking the orchard with with the weed eater. So I'm just trying to tell you, I'm just being very real, just very honest. God is faithful. And if you do and you just have a little bit of faith and you just start saying, Lord, I'm going to ask, I'm going to seek, and I'm going to knock. And about a year later, I haven't gotten the mower here yet because I got to figure out logistically how to get it because it's in another state. But all I'm trying to say is that the Lord dropped the commercial mower in my lap, and so I contacted him. I said, you got one? I'm like, okay, well, it's probably not a commercial. I'm thinking in my mind, and they were like, no, it's a commercial mower. I said, okay, well, what color is it? So they were like, it's yellow. So I was like, okay, that's either got to be a Cub Cadet, a Hustler, or a Wright mower. And that, just in my mind, those are the 3 that I was aware of that were yellow. Well, they said, I'll take some pictures and send it to you. Well, a couple days later, I got some pictures. The mower wasn't yellow. I looked at it. The mower was orange. I said, huh? And then when they pulled back in the name, it was a Skag, y'all. It's a Skag commercial mower. 0 turn. I'm telling you. So I'm just saying, just have faith, have faith, have faith. And just do what God has asked us to do and put him to the test. That's all I can say. Sorry, y'all gonna make me give a whole nother presentation. So, but I just had to share that for somebody. Okay, gonna go ahead to Terry Ann and ask you to unmute, please, and ask your question, please. Terry Ann, if you can unmute.
Before 1 second there, Sister Carmen.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, I just saw this in another friend of mine from Maryland, and we're in a mission together, and then I watched all of this. I want to send you some information for support in country living that I saw. I got it like 2 weeks ago, and I'm sending it to my friends. I,
Okay.
I, I've been thinking like country living off the grid. As
Mhm.
my, I want to be out of the country.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm from the islands, and I don't think
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
what happened in America since January this year blows my mind. You
Mm.
know, and I don't think anything gonna get better. I mean, I may be
No.
stupid, but I don't think it's going back to normal.
Right.
So
Right.
I acquired a couple of acres of land in Jamaica, and I was hoping to get over there, but I was trying to start an online business, and I don't know jack about computers, but I want to my name is David Hutchinson, and my brother worked for Allegheny East, and he
Hmm.
retired. He died, and this COVID stuff here.
Mm. So
I want to
sorry.
see what I have. So
Mhm.
the, the, I like I say, I'm not good on computers, but I have a phone number, and I go on WhatsApp sometime, and it's on WhatsApp that I found this today, just today, and I got on it. So I want to send you something so you can review it and help other people that are ready for country living now how to get the best support, because this is awesome. This is awesome. The person that I want to send you this video, he has a network of country living people in Europe, in the
Hmm.
Caribbean, and in the United States.
Okay.
And I've never seen somebody more resourceful. Like I said, I'm in New Jersey right now, but if I'm running, Sister White says slavery is coming back, and I think that's going to be in the South. I don't know a lot of stuff, but I think it's time for me to get out if I can. Yes. So
Okay.
I want to still have this information. Um,
Okay. Are you able to email me so that we can connect?
uh, I'll get your number from a friend, and
Okay.
I'll send you the information on WhatsApp. I'm not really a computer buff, you know what I mean? But
Sure.
um I I I do what I can. I do what I can.
Okay. Well, if you want to contact the TOC team, they'll get you in touch with me.
Oh, the CO.
Taylor Price or Sister Rhonda Spence, or I'm not sure who from the team you maybe know from this platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them, or unless you know somebody that you knows me.
Well, Sister um um
Yeah,
Brother
that's okay.
David, did you get the this link from Sister Veronica, or did you get it from somewhere that I
yeah,
posted, Courtney Trent?
Sister Veronica,
Okay.
and
Okay, so contact Sister Veronica.
so
Yes.
I was
And
gonna
she's on.
say
She's
this.
on. So Sister Veronica, you can give him my contact information, the 931 number, please.
So, but it's awesome. This guy is unbelievable. Wow.
Well, we're so glad. Let us take the next caller, okay, Brother David? Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes, Sister Veronica. Yeah, please give him my 931 number. Okay. All right, thank you. And Sister Terry Ann, if you want to unmute, you should have a notification on your end to unmute. There you
Yes.
go.
I just had a question to see whether or not at the boot camp there would be lessons about how to choose a country property and what to look for, so that as we're looking, we know the criteria to follow.
Yes, that will be also addressed as well. And we do have somebody who will be joining us via a special presentation. They'll have to do a satellite, but yes, they will be joining us that way. And yes, we will be discussing that.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, and gonna go ahead. Okay. I think that's you, Brother Bellamy, again. Galaxy Note 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's me. I was listening to you when you was talking, and just a little while ago, and you was talking about stuff you're getting, and I just want to give people encouragement. One of the ways for you to get stuff and be blessed by getting stuff is to actually move, because you're not going to get all the stuff that you need to move with or need or so while you're lingering in the city. I mean, if you think, in my case, I could say that when I did move, the Lord literally, if I put a figure on everything the Lord gave me, it probably was like $100,000 worth of stuff. That if I was in the city, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. Like if I had just stayed there. You know, when you move, you give the Lord opportunity to bless you. And one of the ways for me in which He have been blessing is through making alliances with people who not even Adventists, but people that have equipment and stuff. So a lot of stuff that help that you need, you might say, oh, well, you know, I got to fix this property, like in my case, a road and stuff. Well, guess what? Somebody gave me a building. He cut the road. He pulled it up. And the only thing I gave him so far was $2,000, which was because he had to get a bulldozer from somebody. But other than that, everything else he did, I don't have to pay him because we bartering. You know, and a lot of us don't understand that principle because we still thinking, you know, I need all this money, and there's so much people that, you know, would get land to and get everything. So so I'm just saying, as a means of encouragement for those who like caught in the paralysis of analysis or in the valley of decision, you know, just live by faith and God is going to provide for you. I mean, that's how it works. You know, if you look at children of Israel, they were worried and wanted to kill Moses and go back to Egypt because they couldn't see around the corner.
Right.
But it's the same thing with us when we show unbelief or when we show reluctance to exercise faith and to move forward, like the Lord told the children of Israel in, I think is Exodus chapter, I think is 14, I think it is 14, 15 or something like that. It says, you know, go forward. You know, there's no place where he say, okay, well, you plan, but if all plans do not work the way you want it. I'm living in a camper right now for going on nearly 8 years now. Guess what? I never even planned to live in this thing for 1 year.
Right.
But God is teaching us to humble ourselves so that we put people and relationships before housing, and even growing food before housing. You know, like the text say, Proverbs 24:27 says, do thy work without, make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. If people would consider that, they will probably put 20% of their income in housing and the next 80% in sustaining yourself. If you put too much into housing, then unless you are a termite, then the house is going to be edible. And if you put, you know, I have friends who put everything in their housing, and when I look at their garden, it's deplorable. So anyway, that's the point I wanted to make.
Yep. Nope. And definitely on the same page there. And that's what I've been telling people. Yeah, just don't spend so much money on structure, because I mean, there's going to be so much to do, and you're going to be outside and in your garden and so on and so forth, or getting wood in, or, you know, putting up.
You wouldn't have time to enjoy that house.
That's what I'm saying. So if you put all your money into the house and then you don't have sufficient, because the thing is that if you buy an existing house and it's on the grid, you need to have budgeted it and planned to have gotten that house off the grid as quickly as possible. So you need to make sure you have your own well, and you need to make sure that you have your own power. Okay. So I do offer consultations. So if you want to reach out, you can do that. It's been kind of busy just because we're preparing for the boot camp. But anyhow, but if you want to contact our ministry via email, I'd be happy to set up a time with you. It may not be here in the next couple of weeks while we're trying to get through registration, getting through some of this, but at any rate, we can actually address some of your questions and so forth. And you can just email us at exodusinthejourney@gmail.com, exodusinthejourney@gmail.com. And yes, do offer consultations for individuals. And I know somebody was asking what to do because they have an unbelieving spouse. And that would be something too we can kind of talk about. I don't like to just give blanket answers. Each situation is kind of different and so forth. So But yeah, that'd be something maybe to address a little bit different. I know that there are a lot of people, even whether they have a believing spouse or unbelieving spouse, when I say believing, meaning that you're the same faith, but, you're both Adventists, but then, or versus one's Adventist and one isn't. So, it's hard
Amen.
anyway. But we don't want to leave those individuals out. So, but yes, if you'll contact and email, we can set something up to arrange to discuss that.
Okay, also, before you close out, Sister Carmen, thank you so much again for joining us here. This has been amazing. We also want to thank those who join on YouTube, but before we do that, I want to encourage